So he's probably equivocating a little bit. And if he's saying that science or the scientific method is faith, if that's what you take him to be saying, what is that faith in? Some things like
that the axioms of logic are true. That's a faith.
Logic and reasoning. Right.
We have validity in assuming our cognitive faculties can be reasonable.
That's also a faith.
Things of that.
Because how were those things? How did anybody come to those things? Hello?
But it's stupid to say inductive reasoning without
You're like animals.
I agree with Matt John here.
Animals.
Those are all properly basic beliefs, and we take them on faith.
JJ, don't forget for a second that we're random Homo sapiens, and we are quite literally animals.
Savages. How's that?
I think it depends on what the word faith means here. If all one means by faith is just a synonym for having confidence in something, then of course. But at the end of the day, that isn't what Matt and John are trying to do. They're trying to paint science as being as faith-based as a religion is, and thereby just as critical. You can criticize science the same way that people criticize religion, even though that's not the case.
That's a great. We don't have a rational justification for them. We just accept them.
Well, I don't know if I would agree.
True.
Yeah, I don't think that it's true to say there's no rational justification for accepting the truth of the laws of logic.
Axioms
I think
are
the
not
fact,
justified, Leo.
It depends what you mean. I think axioms can be justified, or I think you can be justified in accepting axioms. Well, I do probably significantly more so than
justify your senses are reliable.
So
he's talking
about being justified. He's talking about being justified in holding them, in believing.
I would say justified in my cognitive senses because they seem to deliver accurate information to me.
Well, that's question begging, though.
I don't think that is.
It is.
No, I think that if I say, hey, what reason do I have to suspect this tool is going to work? Well, let's use it and see if it works. Well, it worked that time. Well, maybe I still don't know if the tool works. Let's try it again. Oh, every time I've used a tool, it works. I think I'm rationally justified in assuming that the tool does work. I don't think that's question begging.
That's a different process.
It just Christians don't understand.
You had to use them to verify them.
Exactly. You're assuming that the rules of induction are valid. That's the assumption.
That's Homo sapien behavior. We do. We act.
You're missing.
You guys don't think you use the rule of induction or logic when you're reading the Bible and trying to understand Scripture? Because it's how you understand Scripture. Like when you're reading a non-fiction book, you use logic and you use that same type of technique. It's the same thing. So I don't understand how you can ascribe.
When it comes to assumptions, axioms, postulates, presuppositions, we accept them as true without proof for demonstration, justification. They are confidence that we have. Reasonably so.
There are many things.
There are
many things in your day-to-day life that you do not accept without evidence. On a day-to-day, there are many things that religious people on a day-to-day basis do not accept without substantial evidence.
There's no evidence that the axioms of logic are true, sir.
We don't need evidence that they're true.
There you go.
You use them on a day-to-day basis, John, whether they're true or not.
If you're claiming... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Whether the axioms of logic are true or not, John, you use them on a day-to-day basis all the time. When you converse with people, when you talk with people, when you discuss reason, it's part of your existence.
And that's what I consider God.
Also, I just wanted to outline, because somebody used the term properly basic belief, and in epistemology, there's some questions about that term and what it actually means, but properly basic beliefs are actually sufficiently warranted. They're just not inferentially warranted, but they are still warranted.
On faith?
Caveman finds out that a rock hitting into a flint started a fire when put into some wheat. Caveman did it 25 more times. Caveman simply just has faith that fire happens from this.
Totally, yep.
Yeah, you switched it up to, we're talking about presuppositions here. You're talking about propositions.
Caveman is putting complete trust and confidence in the
John Lee, you say
validity
some
of
of the
inductive
dumbest
reasoning
things.
without being able to prove it by science.
Yeah, you're just gonna get us in this linguistic trap of, oh, nothing can be 100% proven, therefore science is useless. It's not a good tool.
I didn't say that. That's a straw man now. I'm just talking about the presuppositions, axioms, postulates, assumptions.
You need
in
them. You
mathematics
need
and
them
science.
to, like, you
That's
need
what I'm
them in
talking
the
about.
scientific method to get utility, John. Like, it's not that hard of a concept to
You have
understand.
the faith that the scientific method is reliable. That's a
Well, I
faith as
like
well.
modern society. I like electricity. I like bridges. I like glasses. I like medicine, right? I like institutions. So, yeah, it's a pretty damn reliable thing, John.
It's
I
a
mean,
faith
you could always
is my
go back
point.
to living in a
It's
kibbutz if you wanted to live a life without science.
Build a wooden
and
cross,
engineering.
put it on top of a building, and pray to your God if that's
Listen.
the world you like.
You're talking to someone who appreciates the natural sciences, but what you're misrepresenting is that within the natural sciences, there are certain things that are believed without justification, believed without evidence. They're merely starting points within theoretical models that we just simply accept them as true.
Because they serve heavy utility. You cannot seem to understand them.
Exactly.
Yeah, you just want a cheap gotcha. That's what you
And all I'm saying is that whether you like the word or not, they are faiths.
Sure, John, we can accept that and also accept that the utility has played a huge role in, like, the development of humankind, as Christianity and other theist-based systems have not.
Well, that's not true.
That's not fair. Okay.
When you talk about
okay.
biological
No longer are needed in many
Dude,
evolutionarily adapted
I let you speak. Every time I say a few words, you interrupt me. You're so triggered. When we talk about the biological sciences and biological evolution and anthropology, right? The utility is religion itself. We see that religious societies survive 400% more than secular societies. So that's the utility there. And so if you're looking at what there is in God belief, that is the survival of this human species itself.
It's funny because on the planet now, secular societies are significantly more developed than deeply religious societies. I mean, look at the difference between Finland and Saudi Arabia.
This is called Lutheranism leads to extinction problem.
Yeah, Finland has been established by 400 years of Lutheranism, right? And so what you're imagining, that religion.
Well, it hasn't.
Hang on, sir. Religion is not suddenly in the 22nd century has become a vestige of an ancient.
We're in the 21st century, buddy.
Didn't I say 21st century?
No, you said 22nd.
Okay, in the 21st century. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I actually, as an agnostic who's very anti-theist, I mean, if you read *Sapiens*, if you read anything on evolutionary biology, it is true that, like, religious frameworks help humans evolve and survive, John, but that says nothing about their veracity, right?
No one's talking about the veracity. Someone was mentioning utility, my goodness.
Yeah, but we're talking about utility moving forward in, like, more futuristic utopian developed societies. I think that's kind of what we're implying here. Like, yeah, it was very helpful back then.
That godlessness has utility.
I mean, look at every scientific advancement around you. That all happened without God.
We have science because of religion.
Yeah, that's insane.
It's because people questioned the status quo of what was accepted in religious thought at the time is what created things like empirical evidence and then led to things like the Age of Enlightenment that led to the scientific method was because people didn't accept the status quo within the religious thought of the time.
Also, arguing that because a majority of the major scientists throughout history that further developed science were religious somehow means that religion started science would be like arguing that since a majority of the founders of quantum mechanics were German, that therefore quantum mechanics is German. It's just a stupid fucking argument.
Listen, there's no reason to think that somehow science and religion are opposed to each other in any way, form, or
Well, but they are. I mean, if you're talking, you look at any specific religion and there will have to be either claims that you have about science that have to be denied to protect certain claims that the religion makes, or vice versa. You will never be able to reconcile every claim made by a religion, any religion, with every claim made by science. That's not something that can be done.
Claim miracles don't happen, for example.
Okay, that doesn't bear on what I said.
When you look at the natural sciences, they are brought out by religious thought, right? You look at the early.
Well, that's funny because a lot of our modern scientific advances were developed during the period of Enlightenment, in which secularism was on. Right? Yeah, because you say the dumbest shit. Why should we sit here and listen to you say stupid shit? Why?
You're intolerant.
Yes, I am intolerant of stupidity.
Right.
Yes, I am.
Find studies show that atheists are more intolerant than the religion.
I'd like to put out there that I love Leo. Thank you. Yeah, John, if my theology and my knowledge system told me that I just have to obey 10 commandments and then I'm going to go to heaven forever, I don't think I'd have a lot of incentive to scientifically iterate, right?
I have a question. Are you guys naturalists? Because, I mean, naturalism, right? Physicalism, materialism.
I am.
Is really philosophically irrational.
Yeah, John Lee states it is, so I guess that means it is, right?
Yeah, John, you mentioned that religious thought. I mean, the noun, the thing that we're talking about here, the object is thought. It comes from the mind. Religion itself also came from the mind. Why? It came from imagination. A lot of the most breakthrough thinkers were very imaginative. Einstein, Newton, they had great imaginations. They didn't just accept the status quo. They were able to think in abstract ways to come up with new theories. I think religion was a very prime example of that, in that humans were able to use their imaginations to be able to say, I don't understand the natural world, how it works. So it must be some sort of power or entity that gives it meaning.
Yeah,
it's the same sort of thing. It's exactly the same.
Well, you call imagination, I would call revelation from God Himself.
Exactly.
Right?
It's what it is, John. It's imagination.
God, you guys
it's what it is. It's imagination.
It's amazing
it's in your mind.
How you guys, like, I let you go on for about 2 minutes. I literally speak. I'm just beginning my response, and you interrupt me.
Yeah, well, we're saying things that are informative.
John, every time someone brings up revelation, they talk about a subjective experience. It's from your mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to bow out of the conversation if you guys are just going to continue.
Wait, can you let, like, John to talk? Like, because it seems... I by the way, I just came into the room, so I don't know what you're talking about.
We have let John talk quite a bit. I mean, I don't know if we all
I have no idea, but he said right now that you talked for 2 minutes, and right now when he tried to say something, people interrupted him.
I'm gonna take off. I gotta go pick up some food, but just really quick to Rhodey. I mean, I could admit we're probably being a bit interruptive with John, but at the same time, I mean, look, number one, we're all growing impatient with his complete inability to actually respond to anything that anybody is saying, as well as with the fact that everything that he says is completely uninformative.
Well, that seems to me like a good accusation, and there are some. I did experience with John. I had experiences with John Lee where this accusation is appropriate, but right now I have no idea. So, John Lee, can you please tell me what is the discussion about and
well, I mean, Rhodey,
where we are in the dialectic?
Yeah, I mean, basically, you probably just got here, but the last 30 minutes or so, every time I let them speak and then I speak, 3-4 people just jump in to interrupt me. 5-10 words in. I mean, you might have seen a little bit of that, and so, I mean, basically, the conversation is faith, and whether in science there is a faith. I claim that there is, and I define faith as a confidence, assurance, trust, belief, acceptance, right? And so this is how I understand it. So, with regard to certain presuppositions, axioms, postulates, right? Things like that. That science and mathematics accepts these things as starting points for various theoretical models, and that is necessary, right, for people to have that starting point. There's no justification for them. It's a belief that that it's reasonable because the models do work, and that's all I was trying to say. And with respect to religion, it's not that much different as far as faith is concerned.
Well, the epistemic virtues that you might imply have like different types of they in the machinery they do a different type of a work, right? So, for example, you might say something like, for me to play chess, I need to presuppose specific rules. I need to presuppose entities such as knights, kings, queens, stuff like that. And there is no explanation to knight, king, queen, and stuff like that. But the epistemic access to those things is not really relevant, because you're not talking about what is true or what is not true, but what type of a game we're playing. Right.
Damn.
So if you have, for example, let's say some mathematical entities that you're presupposing in your model, well, the point here is that you're presupposing it in regards to their function, not to the part of the truth conduciveness. Now, if, as well as being pragmatic or practical to convey the propositions of the theories, right? It's also that the propositions give you some kind of a credence in regards to the theoretical virtues that you employ. Then it might be the case that this is the language that you also should use in a normative sense. But that's not seem to me parallel to how religious people use their language and what they presuppose in their language, because the theoretical virtues are entirely different. By the way, I would understand anything with what you are disagreeing.
I would disagree in the sense of the religious people use axioms differently. When it comes to God, we consider God a presupposition for various theoretical models, and they do work, right? Just as much as when science presupposes, for example, let's say, a uniformitarianism, right? There's no justification for it. There's no, but it's reasonable to believe that it is true, and so because they work within models, and I don't see religion being any different.
Well, I'm not entirely sure about the uniformitism stuff. The point here is that you are giving some type of an explanation to a set of phenomena or set of observations, right? And when you're having this type of an explanation, it doesn't even have to be true per se, quote unquote, like T, the capital T truth, right? Because you can say something like, well, it might be the case that there is some kind of an unobservable force that can disrupt this type of unity, but might be this type of a force itself is unified in a particular area. Under the presuppositions, right, under the propositions of the theories, there is no commitment to say other entities don't exist. You are only committed to those entities that are posited by the theories. So I'm not entirely sure how it is similar. And in the other case, the meta-analysis of the languages that the scientists use and the religious use is also very different, because the meta conviction or the meta-analysis is that the sciences use theoretical virtues, right? A specific type of theoretical virtues, and the religious person don't. The virtues that he employs, are not theoretical.
So the kind of discussion was kind of about semantics, in the sense, I don't know if you would agree that that philosophers, let's just say, right, Aristotelian philosophers, have the faith that the axioms of logic are true. Would you agree with that terminology, incorporating faith?
I'm not even. Wait. Can you repeat the question, because it seemed to me like you're asking me?
Yes, I'm talking about the acceptance.
Wait. Just before that, I want to. Well, accepting and believing are different things.
Oh,
right. So
wow.
In the literature, So in the literature, wait, just 1 second. I want to explain the difference. So acceptance in the philosophy of science literature means empirically adequate, right? Right. That the proposition, the belief, is empirically adequate rather than true.
Yeah, but we're not talking about propositions. That's what we're talking about. Presuppositions. There's a difference.
No, there is no difference. The propositions can be presuppositions.
Like, I'll give you an example.
Presuppositions are just a subset. Can I just finish what I wanted to say?
Sure.
Please. I'd be not more than 20 seconds, okay? Not more than even 10 seconds. So I'm just saying that, like, acceptance just means it is true that it is empirically adequate. Belief means that the belief itself is true. Now, you said something about propositions and presuppositions. I take just presuppositions to be a propositional entity, which just means that presuppositions are a subset of propositions. Now, go ahead.
Yeah. With regard to, like, the axioms of the Euclidean geometry, right? I don't consider them propositions. I consider them such that they are accepted as true without proof or demonstration. That's what axioms represent. And so you're saying that we believe that they're true. More importantly, I would claim that we have the faith that they are true. And so when we do use various mathematical equations involving Euclidean geometry, we just use them as starting points for the equation, calculation, whatever the case is, and that we just believe that they are reliable, and we accept that they're reliable. So that's how I understand acceptance, belief, faith. It seems I was very surprised you said you didn't think that belief and acceptance are synonymous.
Yeah, so I already explained why they're not synonymous and how they are used in the literature. And when you're saying to me right now that this is how I use those terms, when you didn't give me any type of an analysis of how you use those terms. You just said this is that and that is this. So I'm not entirely sure about that, but just in general, first of all, one might say I'm accepting Euclidean geometry, right, to be a good framework to analyze or to inquire about, let's say, the geometry of space-time, right? By the way, it's false, but regardless of that, the point here is that you might just accept it rather and not believe that, right? By acceptance, I just mean it leads you to empirical adequacy, right? And empirical adequacy doesn't mean true.
Well, I think definitionally it's an acceptance that it is true.
No, I already gave you the differences. If you're using acceptance and belief in the same sense, then fine. So I'll just say empirical adequacy without even talking about acceptance, right? But I'm saying that you can have the belief that it is empirical adequate without you having the belief that it is also true.
Yeah. So how you characterize it? You characterize sort of usefulness, right? I'm trying to attempt to say that it's accepted as true. I mean, isn't that what axioms represent?
Rody, we went back and forth with John for a long time on probabilistic assumptions and how an atheist agnostic worldview is based off of assumptions and probability theory, and it didn't stick. So I'm not sure that it's going to stick this.
Well, probability theory is also assuming in the background mathematics, so it's probably better to just use mathematics. Or even under like mathematics, you can say like if you are a logicist, it's very comforting. You can think about logic, but John, just 1 second. I'm not talking that long. I promise you. The thing that I try to say to you is that nothing in the scientific community, right? Nothing in the sciences themselves obligate you to take them as presuppositions in regards to you believing that they are true. You can also just accept them as being empirical adequate, right? And there is no contradiction between doing that and being a scientist that's trying to find out models. Now go ahead.
So I mean, I do understand what you're saying. That maybe you're viewing it as some sort of like a utility in implementing these axioms and postulates and assumptions and presuppositions in what we do, but I would claim that we accept that they're true, that they're useful, because they are true, and they've never been shown to be wrong in a sense. And so that would be I don't consider it some sort of provisional acceptance. I consider it a universal acceptance. And so, in science, now the theories, those are provisional, those are revisable. The facts in science are just that. And so I understand that would be perverse to withhold provisional assent, right, to these theories, and that's what science is about. It's the best explanation, but within the presuppositions themselves, right, they are accepted as truth. I mean, and I would assert that semantically, anyway, I would claim that particular confidence, assurance, and trust in that would be a faith. I know people don't like that word.
Mm-hmm. So, John, you're using Christian language to discuss a different epistemology.
So just before that, all of that. Look, John, I don't think you replied to anything that I said. Like, now you said before that the scientific inquiry or the scientist has some type of a normative obligation to follow those types of supposed theories, right? Posited theories as being true. And I don't think that's the case, and I don't think there is some kind of a psychological...
Oh, no, I never said that, Rody.
You said something...
I wasn't talking about the theories, I was talking about the presuppositions.
No. Okay, so the presuppositions there also doesn't have to be taken to be as something that is true, like capital T true, but rather accepted as being empirical adequate, or useful tools for empirical adequacy. Now, and I don't think that what you're saying is correct about even the language itself, because the language itself can also be altered, right? So, for example, in the 60s, I think, maybe I'm incorrect, after further investigation on quantum mechanics, people proposed to dispense from one of the 17 laws in set theory from the distributive law, right? Which is very core and very core concept in logic, right? In a very same sense that like the law of excluded middle is. Not in the very same sense, but very like similarly in the same sense. So in this case, they are changing their language, right, by dispensing from the law of distribution. And how they construct the truth tree is entirely different. Now, you can attack this view by saying that no, not many, if at all, quantum scientists, right, the scientists that specialize in quantum theories, uses quantum logic, and it will be correct. But it was proposed, and it could be something that you are using, right? And that's a different language. But before all of that, what I said is that you can also accept them as being empirical adequate and useful tools without committed to their metaphysical status as being true. And I don't think you replied to that before.
Yeah, and so when you talk about, even if you look up the word axiom, I'm pretty sure, of course we're using a dictionary, but it'll use the word true, acceptance, true, maybe, or something like that, right? Now, with regard to like the axioms of logic, you're saying what? That they're just useful tools? I mean, I would claim that we believe that it's true. This is how we derive knowledge, justified.
But I don't care what you
But John, scientists don't do that, John. Like, you can't say the scientific worldview is going to be explained through my theistic worldview. That's not...
Ray, can you, just 1 second? But the point here...
Science is not even about truth.
Look, wait.
That's right.
Wait. Oh my God!
Tell that to Neil deGrasse Tyson, who says
I don't care about what Neil deGrasse Tyson says, and please don't reply to it. Right? Okay. So I'm saying that there is no contradiction in saying they are accepting that rather than having that as a true belief. Or if you have even some type of a poll research that scientists do have this type of an inclination to think that the specific language that they're using are true, independent of the theories or the usefulness of them. Go ahead, but if you're not doing that, then I'm not sure what is the justification to claim that this is what they are doing or this is what they believe.
I mean, that would be my argument. It would be simply that when it comes to certain laws in nature, certain laws in philosophy, like the axioms of logic, for example, um, I would claim that they're not only useful in the models that they use, that they're believed and accepted to be true. I mean, you might not like that language.
That's a different discussion.
Well, that was
it.
You know, the original discussion, Rody, was about faith, and then the basis of faith, right? And whether faith in itself is a basis for belief, right? That was originally the discussion before you got here.
Well, it is irrelevant because, like, right now we're talking. First of all, right now what you said is not really relevant to what you said prior to that. Because even if I think even if you talked about faith and stuff like that, I can say to you, well, if faith is not and that's by what I said before, and I do.
Presuppositions and axioms that they implement, just as the believer has faith in the presupposition of God in their worldview and in the way they operate. Now, I think it's not an equivocation. Right? That was really the issue of semantics, and I would claim that although theoretical models, right, are accepted provisionally and they're factual and not truth, I would say that the presuppositions are, though, accepted as truth. I mean, that would be my position.
Well, I understand that this is your position, but I'm saying that you are wrong. And I'm not accusing you of equivocation, right? What I am what I am saying that whatever you are saying about faith is wrong, right? In regards to the similarities and the parallels between the religious person when he's reading the text or when the scientist reading like some type of literature about whatever subject he wants to inquire about.
Yeah, I think.
And you can.
I mean, I was really more talking about the presupposition, not the proposition.
Well, forget about the usage of presuppositions and propositions. What I'm talking about. Well, in both cases, you have axioms. Now, those axioms can be justified by the meta language, but they cannot be justified in the object language. If you want me to explain what is the meta language and what is the object language, it's very easy to explain.
Are you saying, Rody, that axioms can be justified?
Yes.
Not. I mean, but
do you know what I said? Do you remember what I said right now?
Well, you pointed out two different ways of showing how they're justified.
One
by
way.
Language,
and
right?
No. Okay. So there is a notion of types of or order of languages, right? One you call the object language, right? So, for example, we are talking about in English, right? And English is the object language. We are using the English to have some type of a discussion. Now, let's suppose you know also Hebrew, and I'm telling you and I am talking to you in Hebrew about English, about the language English. Now, in this case, Hebrew is the meta language, and English is the object language, right? In other words, the meta language is a language that talks about the object language, explicate the properties, expressiveness, and different type of stuff. So under those conditions, when you have the meta language that talks about the object language, you can justify the axioms because you have more expressive power to talk about the axioms, right? You are assuming and you're having more entities in your vocabulary to do so, right? Now,
so you're saying there's an object language that justifies the axioms of logic, something like that?
A meta language that can justify the logic. For example, people think that, let's say, inference rules are not justifiable, but actually they are justifiable because you can put them in a truth table, which is not part of the object language of propositional logic. And you can see that it is a tautology to put them into one sentence. That's one way to establish their validity as an inference rule.
Okay.
Another way is by using interpretation values of truthness, right? So, for example, in propositional logic, you have non-contradiction, excluded middle, and identity, right? Now, the point here is that you can interpret them in when you're using truth table, which is not an entity of propositional logic, that gives you like two interpretation values that allows you to see how it is true. Now, go ahead.
Yes. So, in other words, when Darth Arianis, for example, says that the axioms of logic are not justified, you would say that's not correct.
No, it doesn't have to be justified. And what Darth Arianis said, and I'm very confident that this is what he meant, is that it is not justified in the object language, which they aren't.
Okay, so in that context, you're saying that's what he meant, but you're saying in the meta language, there are methods by which to justify the axioms of logic. That's what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
And he would,
in some sense,
he would agree with that?
Yeah, I actually can give you a concrete example. So for example, what is his name? Oh my God! Now I don't remember his name.
Now that's what I heard Jack talking about God, and he was talking about the presuppositional approach and premise one and all of that stuff. And he's saying that the justification for premise one and things like that the theist would not want to say that the belief in God is unjustified or the acceptance, and so maybe the theist is also using a meta language.
Can you repeat again what you said?
With regard to the acceptance of the presupposition of God existing, right? For the presuppositional apologist, would it be the case that that presupposition is justified by some sort of meta language that you're talking about?
Oh, no. They cannot use the meta language to justify those types of things because under their conviction, under the presuppositionalist conviction, God just cannot be in the foreground. God is always in the background, in the sense that...
are you talking about like hinges right now?
No, I'm not talking even about hinges. It can be construed as a hinge, right? But it is that's not that. This is not that matters, right? The point here is that it is not the case that you can have a justification for God in regards to the presuppositions, because there is no meta language to the presuppositions. The presuppositions are the meta of all the languages, right? And that's the whole point, that like what they are trying to do is not to justify them to me, but rather and this is like shown by their style of argumentation, right? That they are not trying to justify God to me. What they're trying to show is that my worldview in my own terms is crumbling and not consistent.
So
regardless of whether...
So you're saying there's a meta language for the natural sciences, philosophy, but not for the presupposition of God. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, and I explained why, right? Because first of all, it is shown by how they are arguing, right? that God is not in the background, is not in the foreground. It's not something that is discussable in regards to its existence, right? But rather, it is always in the background, right? In the background just means that it is the justifier for all other things, right? And this is what they say, right? Even Seitan said to Mehdi Lahanti in one of his debates, I think, that I'm not giving you justifications for God because that will put us in the status of a judge, but we're not the judge, God the judge, right? That's like one way that I can think. That is very sorry. This is like one example that is very consistent with their style of argumentation. The second thing that they are also saying is that they are also trying to do is that they are not trying to justify their own claims, right? What they are doing is to show you how your worldview is crumbling based on your criterions.
Right.
Because obviously they cannot use the reason that God exists because there is no further reason for why God exists in their worldview, right? And this is why they are attacking.
It's just boy, what are you trying to get to?
Well, I'm trying to show people that you don't know what the hell you're talking about. So, Marcus, in chapter 19, is it 1 angel, 2 angels, 50 angels? How many?
Like I said, I don't have my book in front of me right now. But
I'm reading it.
Hopefully that I won't have the in and out like I had before. The thing is very I don't know. You have heard me speak before. You know my thoughts, my feelings. But this is a game that it's a never ending, you know. Rockets, ceasefire, rockets, ceasefire, rockets, ceasefire, you know. It's dealing with the symptom. It's not dealing with the problem itself, in my opinion.
I mean, and I would even include the word faith. Do you have the faith that facts exist without God?
No, you don't have the faith that God exists without God. You also don't have the faith that God exists facts exist without God. Right? You don't have the faith that facts exist with God, and you don't have the belief that facts exist without God, because again, you're agnostic about God.
No.
People are it is very hard for people to say that, like to eloquently say that.
Well, it's very hard for an atheist to even use the word faith at all, right? And I'll give you one example. You know that guy Steve Attell? I engaged with him I just wanted to quickly say, I engaged with him 4 separate times. I finally got him to say, I have the faith that God does not exist. But that's really hard for
I don't care. I don't care because he described himself as an atheist. And just remember, we talked about agnosticism and agnostics, not those people who take themselves to be atheists. So I'm not entirely sure why are you like redirecting to this red herring.
Well, I was just trying to talk about faith, and I do think it's a good point to say that the person has faith that facts exist without God. I think it's I do agree with his position about implicit atheism. I mean, in that sense.
Well, you're so confused. Look, I understand that you agree with him. I don't, but well, it's already laid out. I'm not entirely sure why are you repeating that you agree with him, right? I'm just saying that his arguments, they're not arguments. They're just like that he's just investigating people. He's just asking them more and more questions up until he thinks he finds something that he thinks is problematic while not being actually problematic, and giving justification, like poor justifications for why he thinks that's problematic in the first place. But what I wanted to say before is that when he says, for example, that you don't believe that the agnostic doesn't believe that facts exist dependently on God, well, that's correct. That doesn't mean that he also believes that facts exist independently of God.
Yeah, J. Robbins' argument is more sophisticated than that. They want to say, because you're going to have to acknowledge some kind of metaphysical fact, there will be some sort of entailment, whether you know it or not, which will invalidate the affirmation of God, which is insane too. But
no, because that's different. That's the problem, though, because agnosticism is like epistemic, so they have to understand the entailment.
Yeah, but yes, exactly.
I was just went over this in another room. Like, you can be agnostic because if God's like, you must know God. I don't know God, therefore God doesn't exist. But that doesn't entail that you understand the entailment there.
Yeah, albeit that's old, though. They already backed away from that. They said, that's fine, you may not understand the entailment, but you're still going to be unreasonable because they just showed you what it entails. And I'm saying what it actually entails doesn't entail what they say in this.
It's not unreasonable because some people are retarded. I don't mean that like stupid. I mean like literally like mentally incapable.
Right, and they're going to say that that's an unreasonable thing to take, even if you don't understand the entailments. They'll say you're stupid because you don't understand the entailments. They backed away from what you were describing before. Like that whole thing with Malthus.
That doesn't change agnosticism.
Well, yeah, but they'll just say, well, I understand you don't understand the entailment, so in a sense you're agnostic, but also irrational because you don't understand the entailment. That's what they say.
Rodila.
But that was a very interesting point he was trying to make. I didn't understand, but he says that you can justify the axioms of logic not by object language, but by meta language. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know what he meant by that.
That's because those things aren't discussed that much with like the meta language and the object language. That's one of the ways that they use to describe the liar's paradox under some views.
So is that a true contradiction, or what is the liar's paradox is explainable?
Yeah, without saying it's a contradiction, yeah. So you go with like the meta language, object language route. What's being picked out is the meta language and not the object language, so it's not an actual contradiction because they're referencing like two different things.
It's kind of like quantum mechanics, like when it seems like a contradiction, but it's not a true contradiction, something like that.
Well, I mean, like I said, what I just said has pushback too, so it's not like it's irrefutable or anything. Grant Priest is like the best logician in the world right now, and he thinks it's a contradiction.
So he's a dialetheist though, is he not?
Yeah.
So he believes not only is it a true contradiction, that it's just one of those things like maybe like a get here case or something like that. Is it something like that? Some kind of inconsistency in the model?
Well, he thinks it's true.
Yeah, exactly. Like a contradiction is true, in other words, right? That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
In other words, Albedo, do you think that John Lee understands what you're saying?
I don't know. agnostic to that.
That's fair.
I'm gonna pretend like he is.
I don't know what else we can do.
Yeah, I just smile and nod with someone.
Yeah, I mean,
I just smile and nod.
JJ loves to ask questions to see if I understand, and then he gets really mad when I just don't give him the time of day in a response.
Are you really mad, JJ?
And I think he becomes more convinced that I don't understand.
So make him angry.
It's kind of like
see him when he's mad.
Yeah, it's kind of like what if someone asks me if I'm a Holocaust denier and I don't answer them, then they're more and more convinced that I am.
Really,
one.
John?
Such a victim.
You
He's
want
more and more convinced I don't understand.
Oh yeah.
You know what, John, you're the true victim of the Holocaust, John. You are.
John Lee is a victim. It's true.
Well, I don't consider myself a victim.
Oh.
Well, I don't know if that's necessary for you to be a victim.
I mean, just kind of how Rooster was
I'm pretty sure it doesn't.
You know, I was telling him that people were antagonizing him and stuff like that. He kind of brought up an interesting point, was that he doesn't mind these conversations because it's sort of, I'm just going to paraphrase, like it highlights other people's complete and utter derangement toward his expression or you know, of a position. And you know, he's not a Holocaust affirmer, and that's like what, he can't be agnostic to it, or whatever the case is. I just find
interesting.
Yeah, are you agnostic to it, John?
Oh no, I am not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You know, it might be truer to say that John Lee's brain cells are the victim, the true victim.
It might be.
If it makes you feel comfortable, I mean, of course, you're entitled to your belief and opinion.
I'm comfortable with most things that I say.
Yeah, like Jesus never existed. I know.
And your brain cells are the victim of your own paint huff.
Yes, and I love to break down your thought that bees have a justified true belief, the belief that's based upon language, and justification that's based upon inference rules that bees implement. I just love the way you think that about bees. I mean, I can't
They
say
have
it.
beliefs.
And maybe I didn't understand what you were saying either, JJ. Maybe you want to quiz me whether I can properly steelman your position.
I'm pretty sure that you don't, because you haven't really characterized what I said. I think you're confusing what I said with a couple other people, or at least one other.
And then it got further than that to where that they have the ability to make moral distinctions, things like that.
No, I don't think he said bees. He said that about animals. Some animals definitely can.
It began with the gorilla.
Specifically dogs.
Then it went to the lion.
Specifically what I said about dogs.
And then I went to the
If you would like a refresher, John Lee.
You did.
Yeah, but you'd like a refresher, John.
Strawmanning him.
Yeah.
No, I'm not
Well, that's what he
strawmanning.
does.
Like I said, once
He
again,
never said that about
the
bees.
gorilla.
Is the thing. No. You said he said that about bees.
That's
I'm
correct.
saying he did
I just
not say
explained
that
it to
about
you.
bees.
It began with the gorilla. Then I said, oh, really? Okay, well, what about a lion? And he signed off on that too. I go, oh, really?
Signed off on what?
Well, what about a bee?
Signed off on what?
That's how that went.
About a lion. Signed off on what about a lion, John? This is where it breaks down.
Yeah, the conversation was about knowledge and morality. Those are the two topics of various species. And I try to go all the way down. I could have went further.
What did you say about a lion?
What did I say about a lion?
Yeah.
No, the question is, what did you say about a lion?
Well, no, you asked the question about a lion. What was the question you asked?
The question was, does the lion know that they are acting immorally when they kill their rival forcibly copulate with his lioness, kill the cub of that lioness, and take on more females within his pride? That's what I was asking you.
What did I say about that?
You said that the lion knew that he was acting immorally.
No. Nope.
God, John Lee's so dishonest, man.
He just doesn't listen. It's hard to remember things you didn't actually hear and process, right? I mean, I think that's pretty easy to sign off on.
What did you say, JD?
To what he asked if lions had any moral consideration, and I said if what he meant was do they have a sense of what they ought not do? Sure.
Do you see the distinction, John?
Whether lions have an awareness of what they ought and ought not do?
Yeah. Do you see the distinction from that to say that they know that they're acting immorally?
Yes, because the later the question was, are according to lion's perspective now, are they doing something immoral? And his answer was yes.
Woo! Let's get that tape. I guess we don't have to file. We all know how it's going to end up.
But I don't think that's true, John. I don't think that JJ would say that lions think they act immorally. That sounds weird.
So what would be wrong for the lions if they are perceiving something to be moral and immoral? They would perceive it as immoral.
I don't think you should think of this.
Copulate with the lioness.
I don't think you should think of this as a moral issue at all.
My question is, what if I interpreted him wrong? What is he saying now? That's different than what I'm saying. Are you saying, JJ, that they're able to make the distinction morally, right? They have this capability, this cognitive ability, according to you, right? So my question is, what distinction are they making? Then the question would be, are you saying that they view forcibly copulating with the lioness to be moral, and therefore they are doing what they view to be moral? Is this how you view it? It's either yes or no.
That wasn't a very clear question.
Do they view what they are doing as moral? Specifically, again, raping
as I said,
or
forcibly copulating. I don't think you should think of this as a moral issue.
Again, if what you mean is do they have a sense of what they ought and ought not do, I think yes.
So they view that action as moral. That's what you're saying.
No, that's actually, I mean, if that's what you mean by them having a consideration of what they ought and ought not do, much like I think we can observe your dog of having some awareness of what they ought or ought not do.
Okay. And so, of course, that's not how I view morality. So by your line of reasoning, it seems to me, hang on, it seems to me what you're saying is that if Jeffrey Dahmer wants to, let's say, eat human flesh, he ought to kill his neighbor and eat him and cut him up and put him in the freezer. And this is quote-unquote moral according to your framework. Is this correct?
Wait, John, did you understand that John, did you understand that what JJ said to you had a qualifier?
Yes. And the qualifier, yes. And that's why I'm trying to utilize his qualifier now.
What was his qualifier?
And so would you like to answer that question, please? Rather than
what was his qualifier?
Would you like to answer that question, JJ? So are you saying that Jeffrey Dahmer ought to kill, eat his neighbor in a moral sense, because that's
I would advise.
clarifying question.
I would advise to get a clear answer on what the qualifier is, John, before we go on.
Yeah, is there a reason why an answer is not forthcoming?
Yeah, because we think you don't understand the question. The first question.
Did you, understand my question, JJ? Because we're talking about morality.
The answer
right?
to the first question.
We're talking about We're talking about morality in a sense of what one ought to do. Is this correct? First and foremost, we are, right, JJ?
I mean, you keep saying stuff like that.
You're the one making these qualifications, sir. And so I'm asking you what you're talking about, morality.
What qualification?
Are you or are you not talking about morality in the sense of what one ought to do, quote unquote, ought to do?
Did you understand the qualifier, John, that JJ put in his first answer?
Is there a reason why this, once again, are you or are you not talking about morality in the sense of what one ought and ought not do?
From my perspective or from your perspective?
Unbelievable.
Or from the lion's perspective?
The question is what he responded about the lion forcibly copulating with the lioness. He says in his view, right, it's not my view, he's saying within his view is that the lion ought to do that, right?
No.
He's doing it because the lion believes, has this propositional attitude that he ought to do it.
This is why I pressed for the qualifier, because that's not what he said.
In a moral sense, right?
That's why I pressed you, because that's not what he said. So you misunderstood his qualifier, like his first answer.
So why is the answer so difficult to answer? It's either yes or no. Listen, either yes, the yes answers a question as to whether my understanding is correct or no, right? And so what is the answer, JJ? And then you switched it to according to whose view? You're not here to strawman my view. It has nothing to do with my view. And not only so, let me just add it further, okay? In that discussion, he did not qualify by saying, if you view it to be this way. He did not say that.
He did. That was actually the qualifier, John. That you're correct about that. So if that's what you mean, right? So if you view it to be that way, then, or the way that JJ laid it out, then JJ thinks that yes is appropriate for that question. The first question, not the latter one.
Now, there are moral oughts and there are
Wouldn't that be correct,
right?
JJ? Did I
certainly don't view morality as an epistemic God.
Okay.
You're following pretty well, right?
The conversation was about morality, not my view of morality, JJ's view of morality.
No,
conversation was about
your
knowledge,
view of morality.
not my view. And therefore, there was no qualifiers as to, irrespective of what I thought about knowledge, nor what I thought about morality. My thoughts on morality are clear, right?
Yeah, we're not asking for thoughts on morality.
So there would be no reason to say that if it is this way or that way in my view, the statement that he made is because this is because I view it this way. It would be I also agree, or I disagree with your view, and this is my view. That's the proper response. Not try to shift it to if you think morality is this, then this is the case. That's ridiculous.
You're misunderstanding again. We're not talking about like your view of morality.
That's like pretending if you view knowledge as this. Yes, bees have knowledge. This is not how the discussion went.
That's pretty right away.
It's dishonest for you to pretend that's how the discussion went.
So
it was okay.
So that's how I felt.
The discussion was about your view of knowledge. Which minds have knowledge? Which minds have access to morality? Right? That was all had to do with your view. It has nothing to do with my view. And for you to pretend that you were responding with respect to the conditional statement of my view is absolutely absurd.
Everything you said that right there is almost correct, John. I think everyone agrees with you there, but we need to know what you're asking, right? So the qualifier JJ laid out first was if by what you mean is this, then yes. But that doesn't.
That's what he's claiming now. I'm saying that's absurd.
I let you finish. I think you should let me finish.
He's completely revising
I let
the
you
statement
finish.
right
I
now.
think you should let me finish also. So, and with that qualifier, I don't think JJ views the clarified view of yours, I guess, to be pertaining to morality. So
with regard to morality,
asking a follow-up question about morality is going to be nonsensical.
With regard to morality, my view is simple: gorillas, lions, bees do not have a sense of morality. Period. Being that the case, I'm inquiring JJ's view, and I did earlier inquire about JJ's view of morality as it pertains to gorillas. I took it to lions and the examples that I specified, and then it went to bees, and he signed off all the way down to the bee. That's what I'm telling you guys. He's the one revising it right now to pretend that he qualified it. But with respects to my views, of which I'm claiming instinct, and there are no moral views on any of these lower animals. That's my view.
I think I can rephrase this till I get an answer to what you're trying to ask, John. So, JJ, do you think it's...
One second. My view hasn't changed for probably 5 years, at least.
I'm a pantheist.
Not even longer.
So if your views have not changed about morality, why would you put a conditional premise statement with regard to my views? The question is about your views, not what the answer would be according to my views. That's utterly.
I was clear about my view.
You even attempted that today.
I was clear about my view.
And what is your view? Is either the case that bees have morality or they don't?
Well, he's all bent out of shape about bees, isn't he?
So I didn't talk about whether or not bees had morality.
Let's go. Well, we did, but let's.
In fact, at the time,
it seems to be a controversy.
In fact, at the time,
let's go to lions then. Do lions have morality or not?
In fact, at the time, I didn't talk about whether or not bees even had
100% we did.
Sense,
but let's take that controversy out of the picture. We did
sense
talk about
of
lions, did we not?
What they ought or ought not do. Although, I mean, I suspect they do. We talked about morality, or a sense of what they ought or ought not do, among lions.
That's correct.
Gorillas, we didn't talk about. That was more about knowledge and actually, it was consciousness. I'm sorry, mind and consciousness.
Correct.
And not knowledge. Yeah, everything I've said is correct.
Now, like I said, the two topics were about originally about the mind. Is it about the human mind?
You're going to repeat what I said?
Hang on.
Which contradicts what you said earlier?
Let me finish. The conversation was about the mind, philosophy of the mind specifically, and the equivocation that was complained about with regard to the mind of God and the mind of humans. And then, therefore, what Matt Adams and I did was to say, well, let's take God out of the equation. Let's look at the philosophy of the mind as it pertains to the human mind and animals, right? The lower animals. We began with apes. That got into some silliness, so we changed it to gorilla, right? And then I was following your view on mind as it pertains to knowledge, understanding it to be a justified true belief, right? Then you're saying gorillas have justified true belief, right? And you're saying that
I think I never said that either.
That this belief is based upon language. You also said that the justification is based upon inference rules, and you're saying that the gorillas were implementing the inference rules, is what you said, right?
No.
Also progressed to morality.
It doesn't sound like something you would say, JJ. Are you sure you said that?
I'm pretty sure I didn't say any of that.
Oh, okay.
I'm not even.
John,
I didn't even invoke inference rules ever.
John, is it possible that you misunderstood? John, is it possible that you misunderstood or like got confused somehow? Because JJ seems to not have spoken about this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going on, but I've actually.
That's true.
This is what I do. Okay, I usually.
Can you answer my question?
This is what they do.
May I finish, please? I usually
repeat
what the person says.
Yeah, okay.
This is just my habit, so I don't. So let me get straight. You're saying, and I spell it out for them during that live time, and I repeat it repeatedly. This is just what I do. If you ever see my interactions, that's what I do when I steel man someone and ask a line of reasoning. I repeat it for them, right? And in this particular case, just the way that I repeated it were his words, not mine. I just merely repeated his words. Now,
no, you haven't repeated
that shade.
I'm waiting for the answer to my question, so I think it's going to get.
Yeah, so you're more than welcome to check the replay. Now, as far as could I be wrong? Of course, right? But the confidence level on this would be through the roof because simply there was not just that interaction. I mean, these particular statements and broken down in the way that I just did about beliefs and propositional attitudes and language. I mean, they were just so explicitly stated, repetitively so, maybe 15, 20 times, and he signed off on it. Just like his reaction to it now would be more questionable toward you asking JJ, could he be wrong?
Yeah, I think JJ could also be wrong, and I think JJ could
talk about anything.
Yeah, exactly. But John, back to you. You would say that you don't have
fucking me.
You would say that your best thing is fucked up again, JJ.
Not only so, there was a huge audience there, and they all heard what I'm talking about, and none of them, Matt and I were commenting, absolutely zero people were backing him up, signing off to what he was saying. It was complete and utter nonsense, but no one had the balls to say, JJ, you're talking nonsense.
What?
Because he's not.
Sorry, what was that? Someone said Solon.
No, I thought it was your mic. That was.
Oh no, it's when AJ zooms in on the map on the game he's playing.
Oh yeah, I gotta zoom back out. My bad.
So you wouldn't say that you have a justified true belief about this, John, right? Because you said you.
You know who has a good memory about this would be Brenda.
Could you just answer my question, please?
Brenda was one of the few people that actually called you out on the you're not.
So you wouldn't say
what did Brenda say?
Brenda said that language is required for propositional attitudes.
Yeah,
but you agreed with that, right? And then so Brenda said.
I still do.
Brenda was talking at the time. It was about bees.
They move their butts.
Brenda said bees do not have language, and that's why bees cannot have knowledge.
And what did I say to Brenda?
As a justified true belief being a propositional attitude. That was a discussion at the time.
And what did I say to Brenda?
That you believe that the bees had knowledge.
Yeah, that's I don't think I said that at all.
The example that you gave was
I don't think I ever said that to Brenda.
The same flower or something like that, right?
That's not what I said to Brenda, though.
It is what you said to Brenda.
No. So Brenda is right, I think. I think that language is required. But what the distinction being that there's something called language of thought. And it's something a little different. Besides that, these do have some kind of a language. They have a means of communication with, as Tom said, they wiggle their butts. However, primitively communicated, it's still a language of some kind. But what Brenda's talking about is language of thought. It's internal. It's representational, internal language.
I would actually say that.
And I don't know how we can show that, but I suspect that they have it.
two
I would
other
actually
people.
say,
I
JJ,
think it
that
might
use
have
of
been.
communication is a pretty good definition of language.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if they do have this
claiming that
external language that they use to convey information of some kind, I think it just follows that they must have some kind of language of thought. What's a bee's thought compared to my thought? I don't know. It's probably similar.
Yeah, but the whole discussion had to do with equivocation and philosophy of the mind, the knowledge of a bee versus the knowledge of a human being. What are the things that are being equivocated as far as knowledge is concerned? And all Matt and I were trying to do is that you guys don't complain about the equivocation between the mind of a bee and the mind of a human, but you are apoplectic when it comes to the mind of God and the mind of a human being. That's the only.
What's apoplectic mean? I don't know that word.
Wait, what's the equivocation?
The equivocation of knowledge, because sometimes theists will say, well, God has knowledge, but no beliefs, no propositional attitudes, and, things like just the justification comes into play. And so if knowledge is understood as JTB and animals have knowledge, gorillas, specifically the animals discussed was gorillas, lions, and then it went to bees. And so JJ was saying they have knowledge.
But JJ's, I think I already know what Danny's going to say. JJ's point JJ's statement was based on him following the definition of JTB. When you appeal to God, you use the word knowledge, but it doesn't follow JTB.
I get it. Yeah,
so you're the one that's equivocating.
No, I understand. And what I was saying was that, yes, everyone else, for that matter, were equivocating. And I was the first one to say JJ was not equivocating, right? That was my commendation to JJ.
You just said
however,
that you were.
However, the issue was that JJ, in the process of not equivocating, was being nonsensical.
Wait, this is outside the purview of JJ now, because you said that you're pointing out there's an inconsistency on our part, like on the atheist part, for saying that bees have minds, but not in the same way as humans. But God doesn't have a mind, and we're not letting theists say that he has some kind of knowledge or some kind of mind, but not in the same sense as a human.
Correct.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with JJ anymore.
Well,
so that's why.
It does.
So your criticism of all of us?
No, JJ was being consistent in what he was.
I'm not. Look, is the criticism to our group or just JJ?
Unbelievable. So that was the topic of conversation. Now JJ was like literally the only one that was
criticism
consistent.
Just JJ or our group?
May I finish? JJ.
No, you're not criticizing me because I was consistent.
So JJ was the only one that was consistent with knowledge of humans and knowledge of
yeah, that's fine. So my point about equivocating on the mind is that to just JJ or all our group?
He wants to say it's like a generalization.
May I even finish? Unbelievable. So while JJ was being consistent, right, in knowledge, claiming that all these animals had justified true belief now, right, it became completely absurd. And the objections to other people, to JJ, atheists now, right, meant that their understanding of knowledge was now equivocation. That's what I was trying to say.
Okay, is your criticism also of us in terms of...
It would be both. It would be both.
Okay, so I'm only interested in the criticism to the general group, okay? So I'm just saying that if someone were to think that bees have minds, it would be in the same sense as humans having minds.
No, we're talking about bees having knowledge.
Yeah, if someone were to say that bees have knowledge, then that would only be understood in terms of having a belief, having a reason for that belief, and that belief corresponding to truth.
Danny, give me 1 second, though.
So are you saying that bees have knowledge in the same sense that humans have knowledge?
John, I don't think he's saying that bees have knowledge. And that's the
I don't even know. I don't think bees...
John, who's saying that bees have knowledge but then was equivocating.
I'm asking Danny very simple
Yeah,
question.
but I'm asking you.
Do you believe that bees have knowledge in the same sense as humans have knowledge? That's what I was asking.
I don't think bees have knowledge.
There you go. JJ was consistent to say that.
I'm not talking about JJ. I'm talking about the general criticism that you have of the group.
Right.
There you go. What? Who are you complaining about, John Lee?
So we're
people
talking
who are being
about,
inconsistent or equivocating.
What? Because when we're talking about the mind, right, consciousness, the topics like awareness, and
who was equivocating, John Lee?
Intelligence, which represented knowledge. That's how the conversation began, Danny.
But who was equivocating?
Everyone else but you.
The people who were saying that bees do have knowledge.
Yes, some were saying that bees.
They were saying that bees have knowledge and that it's not by true belief, John. That's what.
Who said that bees had knowledge?
No, you
who said bees?
Say that bees had knowledge in.
I know what I was trying to say. I'm asking you who.
Hang on. Other people were saying bees have knowledge not in the sense as humans, and yet there was a third party like Danny, who said that bees do not have knowledge. That's.
Who said that bees have knowledge, but in some equivocal way?
Some analogical way.
Yeah, who?
Or equivocal.
I'm trying to figure out who said bees have knowledge.
Yeah, who said bees have knowledge analogically?
I think it was Altoid.
Nope.
Notice he picked someone who's.
There was no one, dipshit.
Is Altoid here?
They said that.
We can
I also said that they don't have knowledge.
Did we ever get the definition of apoplectic from John here? You have to do it fast. No Google.
I don't think I need it.
I want to know if he knows.
Yeah, just use words I don't know.
Yeah. So what's the definition?
Yeah, I'm not gonna. That's like JJ asking me questions. So I'm not gonna.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and you're more than free to believe that I don't know what it means.
Thank you for your freedom, John.
Based upon a lack of response.
Can you repeat
Welcome
the
to
sentence you
atheism,
used today?
ladies and gentlemen.
Wait.
Can you repeat the sentence you used today? Or at least tell me what you were referencing. What were you calling apoplectic?
I said that when we talk about the mind of God and the mind of humans, and we talk about the knowledge in a sense of how God has knowledge, that atheists go apoplectic. That's what I said.
Okay, thanks.
That they become apoplectic over the analogical language, which he's calling equivocation. That's fine.
He used it.
But nobody's showing that. Nobody's showing that over animals having knowledge.
That's my whole
beliefs.
That's the double standards I'm talking about.
What double standard?
Where one becomes completely irate when it becomes a human and the mind of God, and then when it becomes a human in the mind of a gorilla or a lion, then it's like, oh well, it's just different.
Yeah, but who did that? Nobody. You're fucking dummy.
You're the only one that's different, but in order to
there was nothing to be apoplectic about.
In order to maintain, right, that it's not different, the reductio on yours is off the charts.
What?
He said that the reductio of yours is off the charts. You think that makes sense, JJ?
I don't know what he's talking about.
I don't think he knows what he's talking about at this point.
I suspect he might be talking about Rust-Oleum.
Yeah, basically what I'm telling you, JJ, is that in order for you to maintain that the bees have minds, gorillas have minds, and lions have minds, and what that represents as far as humans having minds, and to find the univocal quality of it, right? That you have to go through hoops
Who
say,
is making that noise?
with
Is that
regard to
Rooster?
morality,
Yeah, it's
with
Rooster.
regard to knowledge,
Rooster.
you just resorted to basically bees having knowledge and so forth because bees have a mind and yada yada yada.
Wait, are you talking about mind or knowledge now?
Knowledge is supposedly a necessary quality of a mind.
Not to me.
Well, maybe not to you. Like I said, people were coming out with different views. I mean, how do you understand mind? Some sort of consciousness, awareness? Is that how you look at it?
I told you, like, in a sense that it's like to be. I think like late-term fetuses have mind, but they definitely don't have knowledge.
So what is necessary for a mind in your view?
For me, my definition is just a way that it's like to be. Like a rock doesn't have mind because if you were a rock, there wouldn't be anything that's like to be a rock.
I think that requires some other components, though.
I asked you what is the
that are probably more primitive.
necessary quality of a mind, and all you said was a rock is not a mind. That's all you said.
No, I just told you that the necessary quality of a mind for me and my definition is just going to be that there's something that's like to be, right? It's like there's something that's like to be a bat. There's something that's like to be a shrew or maybe a bug, maybe.
Unbelievable.
How is that? Some kind of experience, a quality. That's what I mean by mind.
But he just says,
Yeah, but you have the
unbelievable,
wrong
but he
definition,
doesn't.
Jeff. You have the wrong definition. Your definition
He doesn't
is incorrect.
explain why he says unbelievable.
No,
or
it's just unbelievable. You're assuming again, JJ.
I'm just going to take a day and say it's unbelievable how big my quads are right now because of my squats.
Yo, JJ, what do you think of the Obi-Wan ending fight? Did he drop out? Hello?
We can hear you.
Oh. We cannot hear you, JJ, but I saw you. Like,
Your mic,
yeah.
your mic is fritzing.
Hey, Tom, what's your meta-ethical view? I'm not going to push anything.
Relativist.
Anti-realist? Okay.
Take it up with the philosophers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm just gonna restart everything.
Oh, now it's better.
Still gonna restart it.
Oh, okay.
Bees have knowledge, and the necessary qualities of a mind is that it's not a rock. A rock doesn't have a mind.
Oh, you didn't understand at all.
John, I'm really confused because I told you what the definition was, right? The rock thing was just an extra little thing to help you understand what I mean.
So what are the necessary qualities of a mind?
Quality, experience, a sense that it's like to be. What's so hard to understand about that?
Okay, so now, are you saying that plants have qualia?
I don't think they do. No, almost definitely don't.
And so, are you saying that an embryo has no qualia?
Yeah, an embryo doesn't have qualia either. Probably around like at the earliest 8 weeks, there's going to be something, maybe. But nothing that we would call minds.
What is required for qualia?
I don't know if I can define qualia further. I think it's like a semantic.
I didn't ask you to define it. I accept it as being experienced, right? The question is,
a sense that's like the bee. A sense that's like the bee. I can't describe it any further than that.
Like is a brain, for example, required for?
What's required in the brain for qualia? I don't know exactly. Probably
if a brain is required for qualia.
Yes.
Oh, is it required for qualia? I think I can't really functional. That's fine. I think that's honest. That's right.
Well, with regard to a bee, there was plenty of opinions. I'll tell you that much.
Well,
bees don't have language. Bees
Well,
don't have knowledge.
my opinion alone is plenty.
We're also not basing our worldview on our knowledge of bee minds.
It's true.
What do you base?
Whether or not a bee has a mind is far less topic.
Yeah, I hate homosexuals.
As Jane is pointing out.
Well, I mean, I don't base my worldview on how is it that God is omniscient. I'll tell you that much.
No, you base it on the dumbass assertion that God is anything.
There you go. God is. I am. That's God.
Amen.
Are you God, John?
Haiti, when's your flight?
Another flight?
No, same flight. 11 hours.
No, I meant when do you take off?
I'm about to land. I've been
Oh,
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I said about the ending of Obi-Wan was that if I don't consider everything else I know about Star Wars, it was okay.
Oh, okay. So you weren't thrilled with the show?
No. I mean, I liked some parts of it. I liked some of the acting. That's probably it, though. Some of it looked cool. It's just a lot of it's not good. It doesn't jive with everything else that I know of Star Wars.
Were you the one that said that Rogue One was one of like the better movies?
Yeah, it is one of the best.
Yeah.
In fact, I listened to somebody who was talking about Andor, how they're excited about it, and I'm more excited about Andor than I think I was about any other Star Wars Disney Star Wars. And he talked about how every time I watch Rogue One, I'm more and more convinced that it's the best Star Wars ever. And I can understand that sentiment.
Who's the best? What's the best movie out of the 9 episodes?
Oh, well, it's a toss up between episode 4 and episode 5.
Oh, okay. And
episode 5 kind of requires episode 4 for context, I think.
I think episode 5 is better than episode 4.
What's that?
I think episode 5 is better than episode 4, regardless of the context. But I know what you mean that it's required, but even if you're like oblivious to episode 4, I think it's still.
Well, it's hard to take it out of the context of episode 4 too. It's definitely one of those two though.
And what's the worst of the trilogy? What's the worst of the trilogies?
Got to be the last one.
Are all three
I
of
think,
the movies ranked from the last one? Of the 9, I mean?
The sequel trilogies are the bottom. They're all worse than all of the prequels.
Yeah.
All of
Would you still think that I can't remember her name, but Rey is hot, right?
I mean, Daisy Ridley.
Daisy Ridley.
I'd like to see more of her. I didn't have a problem with the cast. They're great.
Yeah.
People to work with. It's just dumb fucking stories, and poor writing. Adam Driver I thought was great too. I mean,
Yeah, Adam Driver was really great.
and I think John Boyega is good. I think that he was not
I think it was a weird character altogether. Like
right.
the weird shift they did in episode, let me think, 7, where they were like building up to him being the Force sensitive one. I think that was like, it was a cool reveal and all, but it was like, I don't know, it was weird.
Everybody's force sensitive.
Doesn't that depend on the amount of midichlorians?
I have no idea anymore. But I am looking forward to Andor. I don't know why people don't like Rogue One either.
Rogue One is great. That Darth scene at the end is just amazing.
It was the cherry on top. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there might have been too much of him
in Obi-Wan
prior to the ending. No, just
in Rogue One.
Yeah. I mean, there's only 1 or 2 scenes.
I don't remember. I only watch movies on the theater primarily.
That was a weird thing. I
primarily watch theater movies on theaters.
I watched Rogue One on repeat for a couple days. Now, granted, I was in a weird place psychologically at the time, but still.
Yeah, still. I see what you mean.
John, who made your PTR for you?
Wow, someone gave it to me. I forgot who it was. I found it in the chat.
That was me.
Was it you, Rooster? Yeah.
Yes.
And I smuggled it. I think it's great.
I made it for Matt, but he didn't use it. But I'm glad that's made it for Matt on my own accord. I'll say he didn't ask me to do that or anything. Do you enjoy it?
No, I just knew that he doesn't know how to work Photoshop, and so I didn't know who sent it to.
Well, actually, I'm pretty good with Photoshop. I just don't. Why you think it's so?
Because I have never seen you successfully Photoshop anything. I guess
You haven't seen me fail at Photoshop either. Interesting way to word it, wouldn't you think?
You're correct. I have not seen your successful Photoshop skills, so I am ignorant.
You have not seen any fails.
Right, I am ignorant of your Photoshop skills. I'm sorry, I made a comment.
Are you alluding to seeing his failure at more primitive photo manipulation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was also running under the assumption that John Lee wasn't really good at Photoshop.
I mean, you had that terrible profile picture for over a year, and the lighting was terrible. It was out of focus. Like, Delano had to fix that for you. So I feel like and that's just like photo editing. So I feel like if you were capable of Photoshop, you should be capable of photo editing. That was maybe a bad assumption, because maybe you do have fantastic Photoshop skills that you've just never unleashed upon Clubhouse. I don't.
The kids call that stooping. Yeah. Wait, do they still call it that? I don't even know.
I don't know. You cut out. I didn't really hear.
30 years ago, I think they called that shooping.
Oh, yeah. I'm not a.
JJ, check your back. What's it
I
called?
see something. Yep. Oh, no, I didn't, by the way.
I was not trying to not overtake the room again. Okay.
That's fine. No, I didn't.
It was on sale on Steam the other day for like the equivalent of like $5, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's worth it.
Yeah. I wouldn't have.
It's probably. Yeah, the sequel's coming out soon, or maybe it's out. I don't know.
Oh, I didn't know there's a sequel, or that is planning for a sequel.
There hasn't been a.
Crash, but the gameplay is actually pretty good.
I guess I played some Battlefront 2. That was kind of good.
So yeah, the old StarCast.
But only the multiplayer though. I guess there's a single player that I didn't do.
I don't think for Battlefront, but there are two other games. I don't remember. Force Unleashed.
Yep, wasn't ever interested. Looked too ridiculous. The last game I really enjoyed was Star Wars Galaxies before they fucked it up. Oh, and Tom. Where does Tom get off? Just coming and going as he pleases.
How dare he?
For real.
Heidi, you don't think it's a bit authoritarian that we're not allowed to Photoshop you, but the peasants are allowed to be Photoshopped?
Try it and find out.
The queen rules with an iron fist. That's pretty scary. John, you still believe in God?
Of course. You still deny that God exists?
Nope, never did. I'm agnostic.
We're talking about implicit denial now.
What's implicit denial, John Lee?
When you say implicit denial, John, are you talking about an epistemic denial or an ontological denial?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question, because that clears up the issue there. Because ontologically, I agree with you, John, but epistemically, I don't.
So, I mean, I would think ontological denial is even more fundamental.
I don't know what the word fundamental.
Fundamental to what?
Yeah, I don't know what the word fundamental does there, but I think that ontologically, you are just not. It's either the case that you are referencing God or not. If the answer to the question, do you reference God implicitly, results in an answer that is something similar to I don't know, then it's an epistemic worry, right? So it's not like if it's an ontological if you're claiming it to be an ontological denial, then it's just like for you to answer that, it's just going to be like a category error.
Well, I mean, the way I look at it, an ontological denial is an epistemic denial, or entails one, necessarily.
So, how is that?
What?
Do you disagree?
Yeah, but justify your claim.
Can you have an epistemic acceptance and an ontological denial?
Sorry, asking me a question won't justify your claim. Just justify your claim, please.
I'm asking you. Do you think that
asking you a question won't justify your claim? So just justify your claim, please.
No, but listen. I'm not here to justify my claim. I'm just asking you.
Oh, fuck.
Okay, I'll say it this way. How about this way? It is not the case that you can have an ontological denial and an epistemic acceptance. There's no. It is in and of itself a violation of the law of non-contradiction.
That might be true.
There you go. And that was my question to you that you refused to answer, so I just reformulated it in the form of a statement.
Sure.
And there's my justification.
You never justified your
claim.
Well,
what you
right?
accept?
So,
okay,
we never got an answer to. We never got.
Yeah. How about this? Irrespective of whether I justified it or not, you seem to agree with me that it entails a logical contradiction, and therefore, irrespective of whether you nor I justified it, you agree with me. Now, if you agree with me, and then also claim that there is some sort of distinction, then you're being incoherent.
No, so the statement that you uttered doesn't actually conclude in any way that that ontological denial and epistemic denial is equal. Which was your claim?
I didn't say equal. I said one entails necessarily the other.
Okay, but it doesn't show that either. It doesn't show that either. So, nonetheless, it's no contradiction or anything.
And so when you pose the question, do you mean ontological or epistemic, as if there is some sort of distinction and difference, right? It is my contention, for the reasons I stated, that the entailment is such that an ontological denial necessarily represents a logical epistemic
but
denial.
An epistemic denial doesn't necessarily imply ontological denial.
Now, why don't you justify that claim?
Well, because it's either the case that you do reference God or you don't reference God. But that is true in my view. But it's not the case that you know what you are referencing. So you could not be cognizant of why or what you are referencing. But it's actually
so let me get this straight. You are not referencing what you know you deny ontologically. Is this correct? Are you saying that makes coherent sense?
Say that again.
You don't know that you're denying what you know epistemically. You know.
Try to rephrase it again and it'll clear.
Yeah, let me rephrase it. You don't know that you're denying epistemically what you know you are denying ontologically. That's what you're saying.
I think it makes sense. I think that,
what I'm saying is that's a nonsensical statement and self-contradictory, self-defeating.
Justify that claim.
I just explained it. I broke it down. That was my conclusion.
What you said was incoherent. I agree, but that doesn't follow that. My question was.
You actually agreed to it. You actually agreed that a lack. I mean that epistemic denial is the entailment of ontological denial. That's what you said.
So am I sitting in a chair?
Then on top of it, you pose the question that there's some sort of distinction. I'm claiming there's not actually, right? Yeah. I'm claiming that if you do deny it ontologically, you are necessarily denying it epistemically. And then you asked me to justify it. I made a claim that you agreed with, right?
No.
So by your agreement, you've only reduced your point to an absurdity because you're making the distinction in the denial, and then now you're agreeing that there's no tangible difference in the denial.
John, am I sitting in a chair now? John, am I sitting in a chair now?
I don't know.
But it's either, ontologically, it's either the case that I am sitting in a chair or I'm not sitting in the chair, right? So you saying you don't know is an implicit denial of me sitting in a chair?
If I claim that there is no ontology of you sitting in a chair, necessarily there's an epistemic denial. That's what I'm.
Yeah, but what if you have an epistemic denial? Is there an ontological implicit denial also?
You see what I mean, right?
I don't. Well, I mean, to be honest, I don't know, but
that's good.
So because the question that he was asking was with regard to ontological denial, right? And I demonstrated to him the ramifications or the entailments of ontological denial. Your question, JJ, is something different from, because the question is not, the statement is not such that the agnostic is denying it epistemically. That's my.
No, that is the question. People who say that they are agnostic about God are answering epistemologically. Now, when you or some dumbass, some other dumbass, let me clarify, like John Dawkins, tries to say that if you say you don't know, there's an implicit denial ontologically of God, well, again, you're just being a dumbass.
Once again, JJ,
you have to justify the claim if they're saying.
Hang on, JJ. Is agnosticism an ontological or epistemic denial?
Ray, do you understand what I mean?
I'm asking JJ.
It's epistemic.
That's my point.
I just got back in the room, so I can't speak to it.
Oh,
but John's probably wrong.
Yeah.
It's epistemic. And then to say that it's some kind of implicit denial of God's existence is just wrong, because that's turning it into some kind of ontological claim.
So you're saying that you're saying that agnosticism is an epistemic denial, but not an ontological denial. Is it?
Yeah, there's no implicit ontological denial.
So when you say that facts exist without God, you're saying that is an epistemic claim. Is that what you're?
To clarify, JJ, there could be like an entailment that it's an ontological denial as well, right? If you
of course it is.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I even agree with that. Unfortunately.
Well, with respect to facts, I think that's a separate question.
If tag,
I think that's a separate question.
If tag actually follows through, right? If tag actually is sound, then it would be the case that you hold to facts and you don't know whether or not you're referencing God. That would be an ontological denial as well.
It's just a big if.
Yeah, sure. It is a big if. But
John, that's not your point. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
That's the point. No, you don't know
what
you're talking about.
Reiterate your point, please.
The point is that it's an ontological denial, and then not only so, the entailment of an ontological denial is necessarily an epistemic denial.
This is interesting because
that's not at all what he just said, by the way. God,
this is interesting because if he agrees with me, that means that he holds to tag being true, and you hold to tag being true, meaning that like you think you can support tag, John. So
he just said the opposite of what you said, though.
Oh, he did. Oh, okay.
No, I did not.
Okay, so you hold to tag being true, John?
No, that's a separate thing. My only point is this, okay, is that the agnosticism is a metaphysical denial, and
physical denial now,
and the entailment of a metaphysical denial.
What is a metaphysical denial?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what a metaphysical denial is.
What the fuck are you talking about, John?
You're the one that brought up the distinction, are you not? You're the one, not me.
I didn't say anything about some metaphysical denial.
I was talking about the denial of God being implicit. This is what I said, right? You're the one that brought up the term,
metaphysical denial,
right? Then what I told you was that it is a metaphysical denial, and I got you to agree that a metaphysical denial necessarily includes epistemic denial, of which you signed off on. JJ now comes from this weird angle that he was saying it's an epistemic, not an ontological denial, which is nonsense. A couple of people seem to recognize that. So now we're back to the subject of what agnosticism represents. It represents both the ontological denial and the epistemic denial.
Wait, how do we get to ontological denials from agnosticism?
That was just explained. Are you denying that agnosticism is an ontological denial?
Well, as someone who identifies as agnostic, I hope I understand the terminology correct, and it's by definition not denial, right?
Sure, but so it is either the case that God exists or God does not exist, right?
I've never even liked this binary posing. Like the Christian God, a God.
Here we go.
So that's an ontological question, right? Right.
I guess so. Yeah, are we just going excluded middle here, P or not P?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So true dichotomy. It's either the case that God exists or it does not.
Yeah, if you very carefully define the God in that,
Yep.
So that's how we're talking about ontologically, right?
Yeah, but don't agnostics necessarily not take a position? They're not P or not P?
Well, ontologically, you are like, ontologically, you are not denying God, right?
And I am not affirming him either. That's correct.
No, you are.
But you acknowledge that it is either P or not P.
That's right. With clear definitions.
Right. Yeah. It's P or not P. That's the definitions.
Now, when it comes to the acceptance of...
Wait, John, you're
just
muddying the
not P is not P.
John, you're just muddying the waters.
I'm muddying the waters? How am I?
Yeah.
That's the ontological question. But the agnostic... The agnostic says they don't know. And that's an epistemic claim. Right, John Lane?
Yes, but the ontological denial negates the epistemic uncertainty.
But there is no ontological denial.
Correct. There is no ontological denial. No, that's by definition.
Well,
how is there?
Claim all you want.
How is? Yeah, wait. Justify the claim.
When one engages in life, they view that facts exist. Not only do they believe that facts exist, they believe that facts exist without the necessity of God as a metaphysical basis.
No, they don't believe that. That's just you.
No. It's not that they don't believe that. They deny that God exists.
Yeah, that's you
facts to exist.
That's you just.
No, they're denying that facts are that God is necessary for facts to exist. This is their belief.
This is just you telling them their position. They're not denying anything.
They are denying. So in other words, if that's not the case, then it would be their position that facts do not exist, of which it would be self-defeating.
How is it the case that they are denying?
If they are denying that facts exist, right, that truth exists, then basically their argument is self-defeating.
I think you're following.
Or their claim is self-defeating, I should say.
You're following?
Listen, I'm not even a pre-supper, okay? So I'm not here to justify premise one or anything like that. I'm just stating with regard to agnosticism, that is a metaphysical denial. and necessarily an epistemic.
Now you started saying metaphysical denial again. So I don't know if you're tracking it all because
denial.
Sorry, John. So we're not talking about metaphysical denial. We're talking about epistemic denial and ontological denial.
Metaphysical is ontological, but that's, I mean, I don't know why you keep saying metaphysical.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
because
the point, JJ, is that he's conflating the terms, making it harder for us to track.
No, the point is this. Okay, when it comes to agnosticism, right? You're thinking about the proposition of God, right? You're saying you're agnostic to the proposition of God, right? But when you think of it from a presuppositional and metaphysical viewpoint, you're saying that facts, right, exist without the necessity of God. This is how you go through life.
No, John. No, you're not making. An agnostic does not make a statement like that, right? Like, I don't believe in gravity, agnostic or theistic, like theistically, right? Like,
that's false.
That's just
false. Because when you ask, are you agnostic first and foremost?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I asked you, do facts exist? What do you say?
I would need you to define existence there. Like,
just say yes.
Such bad language.
No, just say yes. Just say yes.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so if facts exist, do you believe that facts exist without the necessity of God?
I don't claim to have knowledge on that.
We're not talking about knowledge. We're not talking about knowledge.
Don't know what facts. Don't know what facts exist because of a necessary God. Don't know.
Yeah, John, that's my answer.
Yeah, we're not talking about knowledge. We're talking about, do you believe that facts exist without the necessity of God? It is either the case that you have this propositional attitude, or you do not.
John, do you believe or disbelieve that my wife is Asian American?
It is
John, you don't have a belief on it, right?
You guys are avoiding a simple question.
Don't believe. Don't believe.
It is either the case.
Don't believe.
Just the answer is no, John. But you have to ask the contraposition of that as well.
Don't believe.
You can do agnostic with just belief, and it's you lack the belief that God exists, and you lack the belief that God does not exist.
We're not talking about propositions here.
What?
Oh.
The fuck you're not, dipshit.
Oh my God.
We're not talking about propositions.
Yeah, we're talking.
There's so many fucking holes in your brain, John.
We're talking about metaphysical grounding.
Is that a proposition or not?
Grounding.
Is that a proposition or not, John?
Yeah, yeah. So it's
we are talking about proposition. You're such a fucking dipshit.
John, was that a verbal tick? John, was that a verbal tick yes, or was that an actual answer yes?
Once again, I mean, these statements, like you cut me off to ask questions incessantly, right?
Well, no, because you said yeah, and then you said yes.
Now you're cutting me off again. Listen, Jen.
Yeah, just let him snip.
I'm just not even going to engage further if you're going to.
That's right.
I've already attempted to communicate.
Shut your mouth. Stealing Bonson's tactic. Cut the mouth
I'm
of
not
the
even a
dipshit.
pre-supper.
Well, you keep saying...
JJ was talking about himself, right? He's stealing the tactic.
I mean, you said you weren't talking about propositions, but then when we asked you if it was a proposition, you said yeah, which is your verbal tick, but then you said yes, and then you went on to say something opposite of that. So I was just trying to clarify if the yes was a verbal tick in the affirmative.
Yeah, if you shut your mouth and just listen, you would have the answer without having to ask.
That's not a given with you.
But luckily, John, you said that you weren't going to engage on this topic any further. We're never going to get the answer.
My point is very simple. When you say that you believe that facts exist, and then I ask you, do facts exist without the necessity of God? This is what you believe, that facts exist without the necessity of God. You conduct your life as if there is no God. You conduct
false. That
your
doesn't
life
follow.
that these facts that you believe exist are not grounded metaphysically in God. This is what you believe,
doesn't follow.
whether you choose to acknowledge it or not. And I do think that Dawkins has a valid point when he points this out.
Because you're a dipshit.
It's a metaphysical denial.
And a metaphysical denial is what?
Necessarily an epistemic denial. And it is the entailment of the metaphysical denial is necessarily an epistemic denial. What agnostics are trying to pretend that one can have an epistemic denial without the consideration of the metaphysical.
What makes it a metaphysical denial?
I just already explained it, JJ.
Well, let me explain to you how you did it. Because you said do facts exist? Yeah, I think they do. That's ontological. It's definitely not life. But when you say, do you believe that God is necessary for them? That's an epistemic question.
It is
by the way,
the
Ray,
case.
Oh, so he's re-engaging again? Okay, so by the way, Ray, what we meant by epistemic denial there isn't that you take the negative to the position. It's just that you take the negative to the question at all. Right? You're saying, like, not engaging with the question. You're denying the question as a whole. So saying I don't know would be the epistemic denial.
Yeah, I understand. I understand that now. I don't understand how this Darth Dawkins line of reasoning is not, like, I don't know the philosophical terminology here, but, like, let's say I have a wife and my wife is of a certain ethnicity. John, can't I say that all facts in the universe now are contingent on the ethnicity of my wife? Do you deny that she's Asian or non-Asian? Like, and every single thing you've ever done in your life has been in coherence with the ethnicity of my wife? Like, can't I make any propositional claim and say all facts depend on that propositional claim?
Yes, you can, but it would be insufficient to demonstrate how that is even logically possible.
Oh my God!
But you've somehow demonstrated in these clubhouse rooms that the Christian God is logically possible?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I mean, one can argue.
This is why you're tolerated, John.
No,
because you're funny.
So example, right? As far as grounding relations go, right? You said you have it grounded to your wife, and then I would have it, let's say, grounded to an all-knowing God. Your wife is not all-knowing, right? Your wife cannot provide revelatory truth to all agents unless you're claiming your wife is omnipotent, omniscient. Now, if you want to compare worldviews in that way, then mine would be far more coherent than a woman who's going to die is grounding all of reality.
You're making an assumption now.
Wasn't it about like an epistemic grounding?
No, I'm talking about metaphysical.
Okay.
You're grounded, right? Metaphysical, right? But we're talking about.
I am grounded by your albedo. Been bad. By the way, can you hear me, albedo? Is my volume okay?
Yeah,
audible, understandable.
Good enough to buffalo that other guy.
Yeah, I'm just
Do I sound beautiful? Do I sound beautiful?
Yeah, you're great, Brody.
Always. Yeah. Am I beautiful, albedo?
Always. Who's it ball, for example? Who's it three ball?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of presuppositional apologetics, simply because I agree with you guys in the sense that when Darth is making the claim in premise 1, P then Q, that particular premise is not justified. However, if one is to compare it with someone who has the view of not P or not God in this case, then I don't think it's even a challenge to me. I think the atheist struggles in finding having a coherent worldview.
So you're a fan of being a dumbass.
Does it prove God exists? No, it does not prove that God exists. I would say that, right? Does it prove that one view is better than the other? I would certainly say it does.
But I don't think this is the the reason you should employ there. The whole point of the argument is that it is super ambitious, but what it provides is with very little. Like, right, so the difference here is between the ambition of the argument, right, what it tries to do, and what it provides you, which is it's under-providing the ambition that it espouses, right? So this is the first problem. The second problem is that...
I would say it provides explanatory power.
Before all of the explanatory power, because Darth doesn't talk about explanatory power. His ambition is not to show how God is the best explanation that we have. Right? What his ambition is to say that God is the only possible explanation, which is much more ambitious than just to say, well, when we assess it abductively, we see that God is the best explanation. That obviously can be debated. That obviously can be debated. But I'm just saying, as a first point, the argument is under providing the ambition that it espouses.
Right.
Okay. So that's the first point.
Presuppositional apologist.
I understand. I'm not impugning.
Yeah. But all I'm saying is, Brody, is that's all they do is claim the impossibility of the contrary.
Exactly. Which is not to say that other theories do not explain. I understand. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that not.
Yeah.
Well, let me finish.
That's not to say they don't have a good point. With regard to agnostics, by the way.
Right now, I'm not sure. Before that, we talked about agnostic, and then we talked for some reason you talked about atheist when we talked about agnostic. Now we're talking about atheists and his arguments against atheism, and you're talking about agnostic for some reason. So we're talking about his argument. Forget about agnostic. Forget about atheist. Forget about anything. Okay, just his argument. This is the only thing that exists right now. Okay, nothing else. And me.
Yeah, I'm not talking about his argument, by the way. You are.
Well, no. You talked about his argument, and you talked about his approach, and how do you think when you assess his arguments before that, and it can be very clearly shown in the replays, how you think his argument is successful. Now, you probably don't think it is successful in regards to its ambition.
Wait a minute.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Let's be very clear on the argument I'm talking about. The argument that I'm talking about is being agnostic to God. That's the argument I'm talking about, not some tag argument. You understand, right?
Okay, cool. So now we're talking about agnosticism. That's fine. And you always talked about it, but...
It's clear that you can't be agnostic about the Christian God?
Yeah. Please just let Brody explain it to John.
Yeah. Right. So, John, can you please tell me what do you want to talk about? John.
I think when I said about Darth's argument, I think you misunderstood me to talk that I'm talking about tag. I'm not.
Well, it doesn't have to be tag, but it seemed to me like before that you talked about comparative worldviews. And comparative worldviews generally is talking about the tag argument and not something else. And when I said to you about the impossibility of the contrary, you didn't seem to have some type of a contention of me going to another conversation. So for some reason, I'm very skeptical. But if you want to talk about the argument against agnosticism, I have no problem. Right?
I'll put it this way. I think the impossibility of the contrary is simply impossible to justify. Is that sufficient for you, Roddy? I'm sure you.
No, I don't care about that. No, I don't care about that. This is not what I'm asking you for. This is not what we are talking about right now. Look, I'm very pleased that you don't think it is justifiable, right? But we're talking about right now specifically about the argument against agnosticism. Now, you want to say, it seems to me like you want to say, well, maybe it is not impossible to, well, wait a second. Maybe the argument doesn't meet its ambition, but there is some merit to it, right? There is something to it.
That's been my point the whole time.
Okay, and I understand. I always had this type emotion in the back of my mind when I talk. Okay? Now, I'm just asking, what do you think is the merit? Forget about the ambition. What do you think is the merit behind this argument? What do you think is
I think
Go
I
ahead.
think one of the merits of the argument is such that any attempts at a defeater fails flatly on its face. Not only so, it's embarrassingly so at many times, and I just think that no objection can possibly be provided. Now, here's the thing: Darth Dawkins himself will acknowledge, like he'll quote Quiet Nielsen, even if all attempts to demonstrate God have failed, it doesn't demonstrate that God does not exist. And so this is his approach. I do agree with it, right? Do I agree with Transcendental argument itself? I don't. The reason I don't.
No. We're not talking about it. No. We're not talking about the transcendental argument. I'm not letting you do it for like the third or the fourth time. We're specifically talking about the argument against agnosticism. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you said that it is not defeated. Now, I actually think two things right now. Right. First of all, it is a very poor argument that doesn't have any type.
Wait. I was actually talking about tag when I was talking about.
Oh my God! Like, okay. Let's stay focused. Are you talking about tag? What do you want to talk about? Tag or the argument against agnosticism?
Well, I would.
Because holy fucking shit, we're just jumping around right now.
No.
Like dancing Hava Nagila.
That's deliberate at this point. I would rather deliberate. He should be kicked. Sure. His argument about agnosticism, I think, is very.
Okay, so we are talking about the argument against agnosticism, not tag. Okay, and we are also not talking about atheism, only agnosticism. Okay, cool. Now, what you said. Okay, so when you said this argument is not defeated, at the very least, you don't see the argument is defeated. Did you talk about tag? Wait, did you talk about tag? Or did you?
Yes, I was talking about
okay,
tag.
So I'm asking you again. Okay. So I'm asking you again. Yeah. You talked before that. You talked about tag. That's fine. I only wanted to clarify that. You didn't need to interrupt my question. Now, do you think the argument against agnosticism has any merit? Any reason to believe that argument is sound?
Yes, I have many reasons to think it.
Okay, can you please give me one reason?
The one reason is that the agnostic is denying the metaphysical, grounding of God.
Okay, so when you're saying when you're saying denying, are you saying that they believe not, or when you're saying denying, they don't believe?
Yes, I'm saying they believe not.
Okay, so that's not what agnosticism means. Do you have any inference to show how their beliefs, initial commitments, will commit them to say, okay, so it is not a reason to believe that this argument has any merit. So do you have another argument?
Wait a minute. The agnostic,
I am waiting.
Right? When I say believe not, right, I'm not saying that we're talking about a very specific believing not. Just to say that they are not, that it's contradictory to show agnostic, it's trying to imply that agnostics lack a belief in everything. That's not correct. What I'm talking about is a specific. It's not about any proposition. It's talking about, right. I'm talking about
just think about what you said before and what you're saying right now. Before that, you didn't say whatever you said right now. Before that, you said this argument is successful because there are good reasons to think this argument is sound. Now there is a switch where you're saying that this argument is successful against particular types of agnostics. Right?
No. Listen.
Okay, can please someone no. I don't want anyone to talk.
When I say
I just let
Rody talk.
I just want to ask the room. Am I going insane right now?
Rody, when I say believe not. When I say
okay, I'm not going insane.
In the sense that you continue to talk to an insane person, yes.
It's
Jerusalem disease. It's Jerusalem disease.
Can I try something? Shit.
Well, only Rody. Okay.
Only Rody.
Listen, very simple statement, Roy. When I said believe not, did you think I was talking about the proposition of God? Of course I was not. But that's what you thought I was talking about. The context of what
else can you talk about, John?
That's exactly what I'm telling you. Okay.
Sean.
I'm telling you that the agnostic believes that facts exist. Okay, without the necessity of God. That's what the agnostic believes.
Okay. Wait.
But can I still in argument? I'll help make sense out of it.
Which is different.
You can, but I'm becoming very frustrated right now. So,
which is different than whether the agnostic believes in the proposition of God or not. The agnostic
he's not denying it.
John, you have to stop over talking. You have to.
I'm not the one over.
Can I still in the argument? You can, but please let me reply, and John, let him just then steal the argument, okay? Or maybe you want to steal my argument, which I didn't give.
Well, yeah, I see the mistake that John and Darth are making. So we're defining this particular God as metaphysically, not logically, metaphysically necessary for all contingent facts. Isn't that right, John?
No, we're talking about the agnostic's view. But existing. You're going back to the transcendental argument, Floyd.
No.
Rhodey and I are not talking.
No. So what you said is the agnostic is denying that God is necessary for facts.
That's correct.
And correct or not correct?
That is correct.
Okay, yeah. So that's a mistake, because what the agnostic is saying is that it's logically possible that God is metaphysically necessary for facts, or it could be the opposite. He doesn't know. So he's not denying that God is metaphysically necessary. It could be one way or the other. He doesn't know.
That's literally the end of the discussion. Like, that is the end of the discussion, John. And if you don't comprehend that, you just need to ask him to reword it in a different way.
He could be metaphysically necessary or could not be metaphysically necessary. He doesn't know. So he's not denying that God is metaphysically necessary. He just simply doesn't know. So he's open to the possibility that God is metaphysically necessary for facts.
Yeah, so someone said right now that that's the end of the discussion. And I agree that should be the end of the discussion, but obviously John will disagree, and you won't get any reason for why he disagrees. I'm suspecting that we don't have...
Yeah, the agnostic is not denying that God is metaphysically necessary.
Yeah, that's going to be the funny part is going to be beyond explaining this.
Mm-hmm. So, John,
so you said right now A or not A, but you're claiming that the agnostic is saying not A and not A.
No. Wait a second. No. So, John, you said right now, and I want to be very clear. Just tell me yes and no, and then elaborate. You said to me right now that the agnostic believes that God is not necessary for all facts. Is that what you said or not?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. You guys are claiming that.
Okay, so when an agnostic tells you, this is not my position, I am not saying that God is not necessary for all facts. He is saying to you, I don't have the judgment that God is the necessary for all facts, and I don't have the judgment that God is not necessary for all facts. Right?
Yeah.
Do you have any inference from those two claims that it will commit him logically that he will also need to say that God is not necessary for all facts?
Yeah, I would say that when an agnostic say this is a fact, and then the question becomes, is God necessary for this fact? And the agnostic says, no, it is not.
No. He says, I don't know. No. He would say, I don't have a judgment whether or not for this fact to be the case, for this state of affairs to be the actual state of affairs, God needs to be the case or not. So that's a mistake. I'm asking you how from after you understood the mistake that you gave, after I'm sure that you understood the mistake that you made, do you have an inference?
I understand the attempt at the rebuttal.
I'm being so irritated right now.
I've heard it only like 50 times, Rody. I certainly understand the attempt, just like the problem of evil. I understand the attempt.
You're about this, Rody.
I don't know if you guys are listening to what the argument is actually saying. Right?
We're not talking about the problem of evil. I don't care about the problem of evil.
Yeah,
we're specifically talking about what you said right now.
Hey, Rody, at the end of the day, people like you and I, Rody, and people like Jane and Tom and Jeff, we're going to pass on our genes at higher rates than John, and it's going to eventually abolish this kind of ideology.
Oh, no, please,
at most, thank you. Very low. In fact, atheism is a global decline. You do know that, right?
I don't care. At most, the agnostic is simply saying that's logically possible.
Can someone tell me and resurrect me?
Metaphysically.
Wait, Rody, if you want to continue the discussion, it might be a good idea to.
No. I'm like super close to just like disengage. Super close.
Yeah,
Guess what I was going
like super close. Like
people like these.
So, John, I was talking to Rody. So
you think that was a substantive comment?
Talking to Rody, John. So that's why I'm still talking to Rody. So
no. Look, I agree that it wasn't a substantive comment to the conversation, but we needed to have some type of icebreaker right now, like something that will make us a little bit laugh because that's like fucking hideous. So look.
Yeah, that's why I made a laughing comment to reply with actual facts rather than stupid.
No, okay. I don't care. I don't care. The only thing that I care about is, first of all, correcting you that the agnostic says, right, cognitively and intentionally says to you that he believes that facts, that God is not necessary for all facts. Cognitively, he says to you, it is not. Listen to me. No. Let me finish. Let me finish and then reply, please. He's cognitively saying to you, I don't have any judgment in regards to whether or not God is necessary for those facts. This is what he's claiming. That's not equivalent to say that he has the judgment that God is not necessary for all of those facts. Now, what I'm asking you, first, I have two questions. First of all, did you understand what I said right now? And second of all, if you did understand, okay, you did understand the claim. You think that I'm wrong. You think that I'm wrong that the agnostics say that, right?
Yeah, I agree that particular objection to that being an option, a viable option, I believe it's a false option.
Yeah, what does it mean a false option? What the fuck is that? Okay, I'm disengaging. No.
He's just lying. He's just lying. That's all he's doing.
No. Look. I'm actually judging myself. I knew that was a mistake, but right, like, I don't know why I continue with that.
Yeah, you just lie, John, don't you? I mean, as far as what Dawkins argues on that particular point about you cannot be agnostic, and I've heard his arguments, and I've heard the objections, and I've considered both, and I do think Dawkins has a better point.
I talked to him multiple times, and he was never being able to justify his claim. Okay, not even once. Not only about that topic, but when we're talking about this specific topic, that's also applied.
Yeah, you're just a liar, John. It's clear to me that it's fine. Thank you very much.
You just deliberately lie. You lie. They tell you one thing, and you turn around within a minute, and you just lie straight to somebody's face. You just
no. They tell me one thing. No, they tell me one thing.
No, you're lying again now.
I acknowledge.
You're lying,
you're trying to
John.
tell me, and I disagree.
You're lying. You're lying, John. You're not disagreeing. You're lying.
Okay, tell that to yourself 100 times for all I care.
Right.
You've not demonstrated what the lie actually was.
Well, they actually did.
No,
and then you just lied, and then you just lied about what they said. No, they actually, Lloyd explained it to you.
I didn't
John?
I didn't say Rody said this.
No, I'm talking about Floyd.
I don't agree with what Brody said. That's what I said.
Floyd explained it to you, and then you just turned around and lied about it. That's what happened.
You just don't like what I had to say about it.
No, it's not liking. It's not liking. It's you deliberately lying. Right? What did Floyd tell you, John?
He's telling me that you can be agnostic to whether facts exist without the necessity of God. That's what he's claiming. That's what Rhodey's claiming. I reject that.
That the agnostic.
There's no lies there, though. There's no lies there, Brenda.
That the agnostic neither affirms nor denies that God is necessary for all facts. Right? He neither affirms nor denies it.
Right. That's the.
And then you turn around. And then you turn around and say that. And then you turn around and say the opposite.
That's a false option. Correct.
No. Yeah, yes, that's a lie. That's called lying.
And most of the agnostics saying that it's logically possible that some God is not metaphysically necessary. So we say it's logically possible.
Yeah, I would say that the agnostic lives life with the belief that facts exist without the necessity of God.
He doesn't know that.
That's a flat out lie, John.
He doesn't know that. That could be the case or could not be the case. Like for one fact,
Floyd, I want to talk to you really. Just wait a second. So Floyd, isn't it the case that if someone says to you, isn't it the case that if someone says to you, agnosticism is impossible, and then they are saying, well, agnosticism is impossible because it is not an option, wouldn't it be some sort of begging the question?
That's not a non secular and misrepresentation.
I was going to say,
no. They're saying it is impossible because it is not an option.
Yeah.
Right, because Rhodey, you're skipping over the part where John doesn't think they exist.
For it not to be.
I don't care.
It'd have to be.
No. But I don't care about what he thinks. Most of what he thinks he doesn't have justifications for. I'm asking for like rational people that do want to justify their beliefs. Do you think there is any don't you think it's a little bit begging the question to say it is impossible because it's not an option?
That's not what's being said.
To be agnostic.
That's a straw man.
Hey, John, can you shut up while he's talking to Floyd?
When you say, Rhodey, that on the tag argument,
he's talking to Floyd.
Begging the question. On this particular question,
hey, Floyd, you're a mod. Can you just...
It is not the case.
Or send him back.
It's not the case that the question is being begged, Rhodey.
Well, the tag is about logical possibility. When you say the impossibility of the contrary, which tag asserts, that's logical.
We're talking about agnosticism once again.
Oh my God!
I'm talking about metaphysical possibility. It's not physically necessary.
We're talking about agnosticism.
John, you're not talking to you.
And it's not, the question is not vague.
Yeah, I hate to mute people. I don't want to do that. Let's pick up an example about, for example, the creation of the universe. The theist asserts, in the case of this God, that God is metaphysically necessary for the universe to exist. Only God could create a universe. Nothing else, no other explanation for the universe existing except God created it. God is the only entity that has universe-making properties. Nothing else has universe-making properties but God. All right, so the agnostic is saying that he doesn't know if that's the case or not. It could be the case that God is metaphysically necessary to create the universe, or it might not be the case that God is metaphysically necessary to create the universe. Something else could have universe-making properties. I don't know. But he's not denying that God could possibly be the only candidate. It could be the case that God is the only candidate that could create a universe. He's the only entity that has universe-making properties. He's not denying that. But John is saying, yes, the agnostic is denying that, and that's where the mistake is.
Wait, may I respond to that?
Oh, fuck.
No,
Yeah,
they're not talking to you.
Then I'll talk to Floyd.
They're not talking to you. They're talking to each other. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, go continue your echo. Go.
Look, John, if you want to just like reply after my reply, okay? So what I thought was happening, just tell me if you disagree with how the dialectic went, okay? Floyd, are you with me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So he said before that agnostics claim that God, that facts that God is not necessary for facts, right? Then I said to him, no, this is not their claim. Their claim is that they're withholding judgment whether or not God is the necessary conditions for facts, or whatever that means, okay? And he said, no, it is not the case that this is what the agnostic claim. Well, it is obviously is the case. And then I think it was asked to John, why do you think they are not claiming that? And then he says, it was not an option, or it is not an option. Do you think I missed something in the middle? Do you think there is something that maybe I said incorrectly?
No, I think we're both on the same page here.
So I'll give you a dichotomy, right? Which is, it is the case that facts exist without the necessity of God, right? The dichotomy is, it is not the case that facts exist without the necessity of God. That is a true dichotomy. Do you agree or not? It is, right? You're trying to bring another proposition. You're trying to bring in other propositions. That is the true dichotomy. It's kind of like when I'm saying it is either the case you believe there are no gods, or it's either the case that you do not believe there are no gods. And then the answer is, well, you know what? You can have the position that you don't believe any God exists, right? No, that's external to the dichotomy. It has nothing to do with the dichotomy. So it's not an option. That's what I was trying to tell you, bro.
No, but with your dichotomy, the agnostic is saying it could be either side. It could be either side. Each side is logically possible.
Yeah, well, the agnostic can also just say, yeah, I don't believe that God is necessary for all facts. Right? That doesn't mean that he believes that God is not the necessary conditions for all.
That's why I gave you the other option.
Difficult.
That's what you guys are doing.
It is not, and I like the phrase that John uses multiple times. It's not a rocket science, John.
It is not rocket science. It's a true dichotomy, and you're bringing up
the fact the dichotomy doesn't infer what you are saying, right? So you are saying it is the dichotomy. If it is, no, I don't care about your examples. It is the case that they believe that God is the necessary condition for all facts. No, I was listening, and I was repeating your position to you, which you multiple times agree with my statement. So don't say I'm not hearing you or not listening to you. Okay? So you said right now, no, wait a second. You said right now that it is a dichotomy, that it is whether the case that they believe, right? What?
Yeah. So if you can either spell out for example, when I say do you believe there are no gods, right? It's either the case you believe there are no gods, or it is the case, it is not the case that you believe there are no gods, right? And then they try to add the third option, which is I don't believe in any God.
No. This is what I wanted to reply with. Okay.
No. In this particular instance, the reason why it's the same is because it's either.
Maybe I just like to be angry. Maybe it is who I am. Maybe I'm just an angry guy.
No, you can't.
No, you may not finish because this is what I wanted to address right now, and you interrupted me in the middle.
Actually, you interrupted me.
So I said, no, I interrupted. Well, I don't remember me interrupting you, but before that.
Lodi? Lodi?
Yeah.
I think you're not an angry guy. I think you're a romantic.
I'm very flattered right now.
So, yeah. You believe in the best in people. That's what I mean. You're a romantic. You believe in the best in people.
Brody's also irrational.
Look at what
I am irrational. No. Some of my actions are totally irrational. I agree with you, Albedo. So look, you gave a dichotomy right now, okay? Is it the case that you believe that God is...
man, the dichotomy.
This is what I wanted to do right now, okay? So the dichotomy is... Well, there can be two interpretations, but all of them, but the two interpretations compatible with your idea here. So the first interpretation is, do you believe that any God exists, or it is not the case that you believe that any God exists? Or the second dichotomy that you might have in mind, which have the same type of a meaning upon inspection, whether or not, do you believe that facts are necessary, God is the necessary preconditions for all facts, or it is not the case that you believe that God is the necessary preconditions for all facts?
No, that's not the dichotomy. That's not the dichotomy.
Okay, I have two dichotomies which are very, very similar to what you said before. Would you like to present again the dichotomy?
Yeah, the dichotomy that I'm presenting is, it is the case that facts exist without the necessity of God, or it is not the case that facts exist without the necessity of God. That's
how is it different from my second claim?
It's either not or it's not. Right? An ontological claim, right?
So in other words, if you want to add the word belief in there, it is the case that one believes that facts exist without the necessity of God, or it is the case that one does not believe that facts exist without the necessity of God, right? And
okay.
so that's
so they don't. Okay, yeah, it is a true dichotomy, and the agnostic will happily reply to you by saying, I don't believe that facts are necessitating the necessity of God, or whatever you said right now. That doesn't imply...
And my point is that they do.
No. That doesn't imply that it is the case that they do believe that facts are not necessary, God is not necessary for facts, or facts do not necessitate the necessity of God, or whatever you wanted to say.
Because it's very simple, right?
Logically. It is very fucking simple.
It is very simple. So when you ask them if facts exist, they will say yes. Most will say yes anyway, right? And then so, do you believe that facts exist with the necessity of God? And well, the answer would be no.
The facts exist without the necessity of God.
No.
Do you believe? Okay, so the question is, do you believe? Okay. So, do you believe that facts exist without the necessity of God?
With the necessity of God.
Well, okay, with the necessity of God. Yeah, they will say, no, I don't believe that. Do you think you have an inference to show because they don't believe that, therefore, logically, they are compelled to believe that that facts do not necessitate the necessity of God, or whatever you said right now?
The agnostic would affirm that it's logically possible that is not.
We're not talking about the logical possibilities. No, Floyd, but we're not talking about the logical possibilities.
The problem is that the agnostic believes facts exist. It is not the case that they're agnostic on whether facts exist or not. That's
right. So the agnostic accepts facts. Like, for example, my universe example. The agnostic accepts the fact that the universe exists. And you can only
the necessity of God. Without the necessity.
He doesn't know that.
Talking about the fact that the universe exists.
No. He accepts the fact that the universe exists, okay, and then there's the claim that God is metaphysically necessary. The only condition in which the universe can exist is if a God creates it. It's a metaphysical necessity that God is a necessary precondition of the universe existing.
Yeah,
okay.
and the denial.
And what the agnostic is saying is that. Yeah, and what the agnostic is saying is that it's logically possible that is not the case.
So
he's not denying that. It's metaphysically unnecessary.
Wait a minute, that's a very strong claim that it's logically possible that is not the case.
No, yeah, this is why I didn't want you to use logically possible, because this is not what the discussion is at.
What it means to say it's logically possible is he's saying that there's nothing. There's no contradiction.
I understand.
Now you just put your foot in your mouth, whether you realize it or not.
No, he's not, John. But
He said it was logically possible, Rody. You heard him.
Yeah. Yep. I said I'm saying the agnostic saying it's logically possible that it's not that God creating the universe is not metaphysically necessary.
Okay. No, but John. So and it's logically possible. And also logically possible that God is metaphysically necessary. So I don't think that the agnostic even can say something like that. Sorry.
No contradiction either.
That's what I'm saying.
No. He might even. The agnostic might even say that I'm unaware of any contradiction by saying God doesn't exist or God exists. Right? He doesn't even need to be committed to say there is no contradiction. Right. But that. No, yeah, I understand. But
you're claiming
in either case, this is not. Wait. No. Wait.
Right. There's no contradiction in something else creating the universe, and there's no logical contradiction in God being the only thing that.
You're denying the possibility.
No, I'm not.
No.
I'm saying it's logically possible on both sides.
No, I'm saying you're denying the possibility.
I'm saying there's no contradiction on either position.
I'm saying of the alternate.
As an agnostic.
Of the dichotomy. That's what I'm talking about. I'm giving you a dichotomy.
That's an ontological basis. Ontologically, only one thing can be necessary.
So it is an ontological question. That's correct. Everyone here.
Right, but agnosticism has to do with epistemology. This is a knowledge claim.
We are not going
Or
to.
at least what the person believes.
Rody, I have a quick question for you.
Just a metaphysical
statement. Hey, I was talking. Please don't interrupt me. Is the statement X believes that not Y logically equivalent to X does not believe that Y?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you repeat it? It seems like you said like X believe not Y is logically equivalent to X not believe Y. Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's not logically equivalent, and this is what I'm trying to say to John.
Well, there you go. That's all he needs to know.
John's
Obviously, this is all. No. Obviously, this is all he needs to know. But for some reason, he thinks that no, it's not the case.
I can tell you why.
They are not logically equivalent.
Here,
The
let
reason
Jeff
why-
say something.
The reason why is because Darth goes a step beyond that, and he tries to equivocate the definition of God with his ontologic status. So let's just run through it. Like I'll say, do you affirm that all facts necessitate God? Then you'll say no, right? Right?
Yeah.
You say no, and then we'll say, well, God is defined as the necessary precondition of all facts. So you're implicitly denying him. See what he does? And that's why John's confused.
And that's exactly the argument I would agree with.
Yeah, it's stupid, John.
You have no idea what you're agreeing to, John.
No, an atheist like making that claim, but again, a agnostic is saying it's logically possible on both sides.
Yeah. So I don't think like you're really going to invoke logical possibilities in regards to the agnostic. This is why I think it might confuse John a little bit.
Because it's not clear whether or not in the definition of God, Darth is trying to say that it's logically necessary, or if it's just that he is a precondition of all facts. And saying necessary that he's a precondition of all facts.
Even if someone mistaken, just 1 second. Even if someone mistaken by saying that the entity of God is some kind of a logical theorem, right? That for some reason, out of the three axioms and inference rule, you can lead to God. Even if someone mistaken by that, the agnostic doesn't even need to say something like it is logically possible for God not to exist. It is even this is not a commitment that the agnostic have to say.
Any statement like that, Rody, you do agree negates agnosticism, right?
No.
Because if a person's claiming that is logically
Albedo, Albedo. Can you please ask him the same question that you asked me?
I'm talking about what Floyd said.
Yeah.
Okay, no. It's not about that. Albedo, can you please ask John the question that you asked me?
Is X believes that not Y logically equivalent to X does not believe that Y?
No, it's not.
Well, that's
Okay.
going to give you your answer.
Okay. So if this is your commitment, now you are committed to say that that it is not logically equivalent, right? Dolph's enterprise, right, his sole reason to why he has this argument is to show why agnosticism is impossible. The people that are agnostic, logically committed, right? Maybe not willingly, maybe they are not aware of it, but at the very least, rationally and logically committed that they believe that God doesn't exist, or that God is not necessary. Yeah, I understand, but they're supposed to be logically committed. Maybe not, they are not aware of it, but they are logically committed. Now,
that would be correct.
What Albedo said, okay, I understand this.
We're talking about metaphysically necessary, not logically.
That's why I said when it's up
it doesn't really matter.
responding, that's why when Floyd was responding, he may not be aware of it, but he's logically committed to the belief there's no God by saying it's possible. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Logically possibilities, and this is trivial, right? I can show you why it is trivial, because logic doesn't imply any type of a semantics. You can have pure.
Because
you can just make the tag right there, because you're saying the impossibility of the contrary is being denied.
Just one second.
He's saying it's not metaphysically necessary. He's literally saying. He's claiming it's not metaphysically necessary.
No, I'm not. He didn't say. No, he didn't say that. He didn't say that. Now you are.
I did not say that at all. Boy, you're just totally. You still don't understand, John. This has been very frustrating. You still don't get
I
it.
think that this is
I'm
not going
asking
to
Rudy. Do you agree
fruitful.
that when he says it's logically possible, he's claiming that it is not and not metaphysically necessary? Do you?
No. Absolutely not. They have no connection between the two. You know why? Because metaphysical necessities are a further. No, because metaphysical necessities are further restriction upon the model scope. If you further restrict the model scope, big words. Let me use small words. So, it might be the case that something is metaphysically necessary, but not logically necessary. Do you agree with that, John?
Okay, wait. You said something is metaphysically necessary, but what?
It might be the case that there is something that is metaphysically necessary, but not logically necessary. Meaning that you have additional metaphysical criterions, right, for necessities, that wouldn't you have those criterions, it wouldn't be necessary, right?
Oh, actually, I think we had the earlier discussion about metaphysical denial entails logical denial.
No, that's false. Imagine a large circle. The large circle represents logical possibility. Now, inside that large circle is a smaller circle, a subset of that circle, that's metaphysically possible. And within that circle is a small circle, which is physical possibility. So, if something is logically impossible, then it's also metaphysically impossible and physically impossible. Okay, but something can be logically possible or impossible. Oh, I'm sorry. If something's logically possible, it could still be the case where it's metaphysically impossible, because what that simply means is there's some condition that's prohibiting that from happening. And then from there, you can have something that there's nothing non-physical that's stopping this thing from being possible, but there's something physically stopping it from happening, and that would be physically impossible.
How
There's physically, then metaphysically, and then logical.
Listen,
If
for
it's
example,
logically impossible, everything else is impossible.
for example, if I deny the metaphysical necessity of Floyd, how can I possibly have a logical possibility involving Floyd? That's not possible.
There's no logical contradiction in me existing or me not existing.
Did you just understand what I said?
Let me give you an example.
Someone just understands. It's a necessary prerequisite for epistemological consideration. And so what I'm saying is, if you deny the metaphysical existence of Floyd, you cannot have a logical consideration with Floyd without.
So if ontologically the case that either I exist or I don't exist, right? It can't be one or the other.
That's what I'm saying. Metaphysical necessity, metaphysical denial, it entails logical denial.
No, okay, listen to me.
The issue is that the agnostic doesn't know if I exist or not. That's the issue. I could exist, I could not. There's no logical contradiction with me existing, and there's no logical situation of me not existing. Now, if I exist, then it would be a logical contradiction to say I do not exist, because ontologically I exist. That's an ontological consideration, not an epistemic one.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Dinner late, so I'm gonna bail. Thanks.
Yeah, what I was saying was that you need to metaphysically accept the proposition of, metaphysical existence of Floyd in order to consider proposition. Can Floyd walk to New York or something like that? That would be a proposition, right? You can the denial that Floyd can walk to New York is necessarily denied, rejected because of the denial of Floyd metaphysically. That's what.
Yeah, if he denies, he necessarily denies. Nice like topology. Look, what I said before, right? I wanted to give you an example. One example is that some people believe that the causal principle, whatever begins to exist as the cause, is a metaphysical principle, right? But it is not metaphysically possible for something to begin to exist, and it is without a cause. Okay? Now, this possibility is not a logical possibility. It is not a theorem of logic that anything begins to exist as a cause. Do you agree with that, John?
I think it's logically necessary.
Okay, so if it is logical, well, I can give you a reason for why, like trivially, it is not logically necessary. But let's suppose I cannot give you a reason for why it is not logically necessary. Would you be able to provide the theorem from the inferences?
I'm just saying that a metaphysical denial translates to an epistemic denial.
I didn't say anything about metaphysical denial. Someone can be committed to metaphysical necessities. It has nothing to do with it. The only claim was that there are metaphysical necessities, right, that are not derivable from logical necessities, right, from the theorem of logic. Theorem is just a sentence that is true, that is derivable from the axioms and the inference truths. This is what a theorem is. You know what, let me make it easier for you, okay? Logic can be described purely syntactically. Syntax meaning like form and language, right? You have words and they are like or symbols that's structured in a particular way in the sentence, right? It doesn't have to have any type of a meaning to those symbols. The causal principle has semantics to it. It's not just symbols, it's also something that is added to it, right? Now, if you have something that doesn't have any meaning, it wouldn't produce you any meaning in regards to the form, okay? So this is why it cannot be a logical necessity. Do you agree or disagree with that, John?
I kind of didn't understand what you said.
Okay, well, why didn't you stop me? Usually I'm telling you to stop me where you are not understanding me.
I'll consider that in the future.
Sorry?
I said I'll consider that in the future. Usually you complain if I interrupt when you're speaking.
Oh, yeah, because usually you interrupt me in the middle of one point. Right. That I didn't give you a lot of time. I'm not talking too long.
Okay, so I said I'll consider that in the future.
Okay, cool. Again, the causal principle cannot be a theorem of logic. Do you remember what is a theorem?
Yeah, I mean, just that first sentence went right over my head.
Okay, so the causal principle cannot be derived.
Yeah, I don't even know what the causal principle is. You're talking about...
I gave you the causal principle. Causal principle is that everything that begins to exist has a cause. That's what the causal principle is.
Okay.
Okay. So the statement, whatever begins to exist has a cause, is not derivable from the axioms and the inferences of logic. Do you deny this claim or not?
That it's not derived from...
yeah, I'm saying it is the causal principle, like the statement, that all things that began to exist have a cause. Right? This statement is not derivable from the axioms and inferences of logic. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Well, what about induction?
Induction has nothing to do with what I said right now.
You can't conclude everything I've observed has a cause. It's reasonable to believe.
You can if you are using induction. I didn't say anything about induction right now. The only thing that I said is that the statement, all things that began to exist as a cause, is a statement that is not derivable from the axioms and inferences of logic. Do you agree or disagree with that statement? Because if you agree with that statement, I'm fine. If you disagree with that statement, I will proceed to explain why it is the case.
I mean, I think that I think it can be inferred, but
okay, so it can be inferred. Okay, so you are saying it can be inferred. You are answered, but you don't know whether or not it can or cannot. So it is possible for you that it can be inferred merely by the axioms and the inferences of logic.
I think it can be inferred, and I can give you reasons why. I'm more interested in your view that it cannot be inferred. I guess that's
okay. So let me give you the view why it cannot be inferred, right? And the reason why it cannot be inferred is because axioms and inferences are purely syntactical. It is only in virtue of the forms. They don't have any meaning to them, right? A semantic that attaches to them, right? The causal principle, the statement that all that began to exist as a cause, have semantics, okay? It is not by any type of form that it gives it the semantics of it. Do you understand that, Sean? Or would you like me to repeat it, or would you like me to clarify specific terms?
It just sounds like a claim. You're just repeating a claim.
Okay, what claim do you think I'm repeating, and what do you disagree with the repeated claim?
I mean, it seems like you're saying it cannot be inferred because, basically that it cannot be inferred. That's what I'm hearing.
I didn't say that. I gave you a reason why it cannot be inferred. And I gave you the reason that it can't be inferred, right? Because axioms and inferences are purely syntactical. Do you know what syntax means?
I mean, it seems like you're questioning the very inference rules of philosophy and the axioms of logic.
I am not questioning anything. Can you repeat? Okay, now I'm requiring you to repeat.
If you can implement the axioms of logic and various inference rules, then why couldn't one conclude, that Everything that begins to exist must have a cause.
I'm explaining right now, but it seems like you are not understanding the first statement that I had. So let me repeat.
Well,
the
maybe I got you
statement.
wrong, because it looks like you're referring to the axioms themselves and the inference rules
Axioms
themselves.
and the inference rules.
Right, and you're almost saying you can't use them.
I didn't say you can't use them. I'm saying from them you cannot infer. Only from them you cannot infer the causal principle. Only from stating A or not A, it is not the case, and A and not A, right? And A equals to A with the addition of the inference rules, such as modus ponens, modus tollens, disjunction, transitivity, and all of those type of stuff, right? Maybe you want to even like get some kind of De Morgan's rule or the law of distribution. Doesn't really matter. Whatever laws that you want to employ, none of them will give you the semantics, right, of the causal principle.
And therefore,
does that
the causal principle is not justified? That's your conclusion?
No. I didn't even say anything about justification. It can be justified, right? If you can, like, for example, I don't know, appeal to your intuitions or appeal to, I don't know, some type of inductive reasoning or even abductive reasoning or whatever. You can appeal to many of those things. The only thing that wait. The only thing that I'm saying right now, it is that it is not inferred purely, right, only by the axioms of classical logic and by the inference rules of classical logic.
So it's not inferred purely by those. Okay. And
yeah,
so
it is used by those. Right? It can be used, but it cannot infer. Because we talked about before, right, about the idea that if it is metaphysically necessary, it is also logically necessary, right? And if it is not the case that metaphysical necessities are inferred from logical necessities, that just means...
I think you're basically claiming that it's not axiomatic. Is that what you're claiming?
Well, not even that. I'm claiming more than that. It is not axiomatic. And, well, the fact that it is not axiomatic is like trivial. If you're denying that, that's like absurd to me. In regards to the logic, I don't care about the presuppositions. I only care about the logic right now. So, if I'm also denying the fact that it is derivable from the laws of logic, not only that it is not an axiom, because that's trivial, but it is also not derivable from the laws of logic. Just say that you agree, John, like, oh my god. I need one agreement. Just one.
I mean, it seems to me you're just trying to argue against the premises of the cosmological argument, and you're saying
no. I didn't say anything about that. Well, I have no idea why you are so confused. I repeated myself multiple times. I told you to stop me where you are not understanding anything.
Okay, correct me if I'm okay. You're saying
you're wrong. No matter what you're saying right now, you're wrong.
I'm trying to stillman you. Okay, you're saying it's not axiomatic. That's correct, right? Not wrong. Okay. Correct, right? Oh,
okay. Okay. Where are you?
Whatever I'm going to say, I'm wrong. I was just trying to give you a list of what I'm listening to, right?
No, because before that you said to me so many stuff that are totally irrelevant that I inferred it. Whatever you will say right now.
You already have an idea of what I'm going to say before I even say it. So.
Okay, I'm sorry that I had this idea. Go ahead, please.
So the second point I think you're saying is that that they can be the causal principle can be justified, right? But not from the axioms of logic and inference rules in and of themselves. That's also what you're saying.
Not more specific, because the specificity here is important. Not purely by the axioms of logic and the inferences. Like purely what I mean is that you are not adding any type of a semantics and additional claims other than the logic itself.
Is there a difference between not from and not purely from?
Yeah, because you can employ the laws of logic and also have additional claims, right, that have semantical content. Would you like me to, I think you know what semantics and semantical content is.
I think the semantics of not from and not purely from are synonymous.
No. Because I can say it is not purely from that, right? Or I can say that like water contains hydrogen, but water is not purely contained out of hydrogen, right? Now you see it is not synonymous because it also has oxygen, right?
So you're talking about exclusivity. Well,
okay, exclusivity. If that's like if that's the thing that it will be more like intuitive to you, then yeah, it is not exclusively by the laws of logic.
Yeah, okay, I can go with that.
Oh my God, yeah. Okay, so if that's the case, right? If that's the case, and metaphysical necessities do presuppose logical necessities, right? With additional semantical necessities, right? By semantical necessities, I just mean sentences that are not from the laws of logic, right? That are not derivable purely or exclusively from the laws of logic, right? Then there can be something that is metaphysically necessary but not logically necessary. Do you agree with that inference?
Yeah, I'm having difficulty on the final stretch of yours.
Okay, Floyd tried to make it like very easy. Suppose you have like a big circle and a small circle, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so the big circle. Wait a second. So the big circle is the logical necessities, okay? And the small circle is the metaphysical necessities. That also includes the logical necessities, okay? John?
Yeah, so the small circle is the metaphysical necessity, which also includes the logical necessities, what you said, right?
What I said is that all that is, so you have a big circle, which is the logical necessities, and in that big circle, you have a smaller circle, which is, again.
Oh,
I don't know what
in
we
the
have
big
right now.
circle, you have a smaller circle, okay.
Yeah, you have a small circle of metaphysical necessities. You have a big circle, logical necessities, smaller circle, metaphysical necessities. Now, an entity can be in the small circle or outside of the small circle, right?
An entity can be inside the small circle, what?
Yeah. An entity can be metaphysically necessary. This is what it means to be inside the small circle.
Okay.
But it can also be outside the small circle, but still inside the big circle, right?
And so if it's outside the small circle, is it still metaphysically necessary?
No, it is not metaphysically necessary, but it is logically necessary, because it's still within the big circle.
Okay.
Right?
So I can understand that conceptually as far as the two circles that you outlined. You have a metaphysical necessity inside the small circle. When it's outside, it's not metaphysically necessary, but it's still within the logicalness, right? And so you could just put any kind of nonsense into those big and small circles, right?
Right, exactly. Right, that's correct. I can do any type of a nonsense, right? I can say like cars and vehicles, right? Like vehicles is the big circle, and cars are the small circle, right? Dogs are the big circle, and dogs with 3 legs are the small circle. I can do, if the analogy is apt, I can do whatever I want with this analogy, or with this story that I'm making.
Right, and so your analogy with the circles doesn't really support what you're claiming. It's an analogy to,
Okay. So
to make
the big
some sort of
circle,
analogous properties, which doesn't really translate to the veracity of your argument.
sorry?
I mean, you're just saying this is the case. This is the case that if
Oh, but I explained why it is the case. Do you remember? I explained why it is the case. The explanation
Yeah,
is
you
let's
explained
suppose.
it with big circles and small circles, right?
No, I explained prior to that, but I wanted to give something that is much more intuitive than big philosophical words. Okay?
Well,
So
I mean, the big and small circles is clearly intelligible. I just don't see it as
Nice.
analogous. That's
okay, so I will repeat what I said before. Something, if you have the commitment that everything began to exist has a cause, then it is necessarily the case that everything that began to exist has a cause. Do you agree with that tautology? John?
That was crazy. I had dropped my phone.
Jesus Christ, John. Okay. John, do you agree with what I said is tautology?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to find the analogous property, and you were kind of explaining. I dropped my phone though. Couldn't hear what.
No, I just want to ask like a simple question. Do you think if it is the case that it is necessarily the case that all that began to exist has a cause, that means that all that began to exist has a cause?
Okay. You asked. Okay. Did you ask me if is it metaphysically true that everything that began to exist has a cause? Is it logically?
It is metaphysically necessary that all that began to exist has a cause. Therefore, all that began to exist has a cause.
I mean, I would say yes. I guess you're trying to say no.
No. It is correct. The answer is yes.
Okay.
You are correct.
Then
It is yes.
I thought you were trying to say something else, but yes, I would.
No. It is yes. Now we agreed that this sentence, all that began to exist as a cause, is not derivable from the laws of logic. Exclusively, yeah.
Okay.
Right. So that means, and it is also not presupposed in the axioms. So that means that it is not the case that it is logically necessary. It is metaphysically necessary, but it is not logically necessary. Do you agree with that inference, John?
Probably not. I think that it would require logical necessity. It seems like you're just trying to I don't know too much about hinges and stuff like that, about background, foreground, all that's what it seems like you're doing. Am I wrong?
You're disappointing me, John.
I think honestly, it's John's nap time, and that he's not able to follow the conversation anymore.
Maybe other people did. I didn't.
Yeah, Jane, but I think John should say, look, Rodi, I'm a little bit tired. Maybe I talked too much. I'm not being able to even, understand, basic stuff right now. So it might be the case that it's better for us not to continue this conversation. I think that's the honest.
I mean,
yeah, it's kind of remember, when I first came to Clubhouse, Rodi, the question posed to me was, what is the logical contradiction of atheism, right? And I was like, what? What are you even talking about? They try to explain it 50 different times. I never got it until I started to precept, and they were assuming I was a precept.
All right, listen to that, please.
And so I didn't get what they were saying. And so
I guess his
something like
energy
I understand.
really dropped off, and he stopped being even remotely
Wait, Jane, but do you agree with me that if someone feels like he talked too much, he's a little bit tired, he's incapable of tracking basic and mundane, very low level stuff, he should say that it might be better for us not to continue this conversation because I don't feel like I'm able to track it right now.
Yeah,
I think that's the thing. I know that you can say that, John.
No, what I'm saying is,
I'm saying you should.
No,
I'm saying that you should.
I don't know about this or that, my ability to track, whatever. I can only respond to my attention level, my energy level. It's actually pretty high right now, Roy.
You really dropped off, though. You sound exhausted and sleepy.
Wait.
I mean, I've been listening to the whole conversation, and you really dropped off. And now we're having a hard time piecing things together, and I think that we should just leave you alone.
How about this, Jane? Can you steel man what Rodi said?
No, I can't.
You can't? Are you sure? Are you just sleepy or something?
I am actually kind of sleepy, but also I was knitting.
Are you slow and sleepy, or maybe you weren't paying attention? That's
yeah, I'm telling you both. I am both sleepy and not really paying attention, but I can tell that your energy level is down.
Okay.
Normally in the afternoons you take naps. So I just was suggesting that maybe you also take a nap.
Is there anyone on stage? Is there anyone on stage that can steel man Rodi and possibly phrase it differently, and maybe they'll click with me? Is there anyone on stage? Cricket.
To be honest, I think most people, just got bored and not even hearing what we're saying.
It is pretty boring right now.
Yeah, it's super boring.
John, have you heard the other argument that Greg Bahnsen made as far as agnosticism? I think Greg Bahnsen did. He defined God as...
I've not seen more than 2 minutes of Greg Bahnsen ever in my life. 2 minutes.
Okay, well, I think he defined God as the God that everyone knows exists, via Romans 1. So God is defined as... So God is a being that everyone knows exists. Now, can you be agnostic about a being that exists? I don't think you could.
Of course not.
Because if you're agnostic, then you're saying that you might not know it, but this guy's defining about a God that everyone knows.
That's not why it's claimed that agnostics can't exist. Not because of that assumption, Floyd. That would be a mistake if you think the argument is because everyone knows God exists, no one is agnostic. I mean, because the position would be, I believe that there is no God, would be the claimed position of which the theist would be acknowledging as a possible, a logical possibility, not necessarily.
So as agnostic, I would say, okay, well, I'm an atheist about that sort of God, but that doesn't mean that some other God couldn't exist. Alex Malpass actually wrote an article on this very thing.
Yeah, but the conversation is not about local atheists.
Oh my God. John, go take a nap.
Right. But yeah, that would be local atheism, because you're talking about a specific God, and that specific God is the God that everyone knows, which is not the same as global atheism.
Yeah. John, maybe I can go into a private room with you and disabuse you of this stupid argument, because I know it very well from Darth, and I know where you're getting tripped up.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can easily, I'll have that conversation. But the thing is this, okay? I've heard Darth maybe 60, 70 times. Very compelling to me, personally. I've heard many objections in these rooms. I hang out with you guys 20 times more than Darth, right? And so I've heard your objections to what Darth is saying. And your...
Okay, so steel man the objection.
An echo chamber, right?
Yeah, steel man the objection.
To Darth, I just don't find them compelling, that's all.
Okay, so you're convinced by Darth's argument, you're not convinced by the objections. So lay out Darth's argument and then steel man the objection and tell me why they don't work.
That's already been attempted.
Exactly. Exactly.
No, I'm serious.
You got nothing. You got nothing. No arguments are convincing to you. You don't even understand the arguments. You just pick a side and then parrot that side. You're not like, I'm analyzing both sides and I understand the objections on both sides and I don't agree with the objections. Like, no, you don't. Then tell me what they are. What is the objection?
That it's first and foremost that there are other options, even though Darth.
In virtue of what?
Is true dichotomy.
In virtue of what?
In virtue of other options.
What are the other options?
It is some sort of false dichotomy.
Good. And why does that objection fail?
Because it is a true dichotomy.
What's the argument for that?
Because it's either the case that one believes facts exist without the necessity of God, or it is the case, or is not the case.
How do you know that?
One believes facts exist without the necessity of God. That is logically entailed by the law of excluded metals.
Right. How do you know that's a true dichotomy?
Because you have a P and a not P. It's not that difficult.
That doesn't make it a true dichotomy.
That's the case ontologically.
No. It is the case that what he said is a true dichotomy. The point that he doesn't understand. The point that he doesn't understand is that
the entailments of
facts necessarily reference God or they don't is a true dichotomy, Rody?
No. So the dichotomy was that it is either the case that person X believes that facts necessitate referencing the necessity of God, or something very similar.
That's not the dichotomy.
No, it is not the case.
That's not the dichotomy.
No, it is not the case. Okay, John, can you please repeat the dichotomy? Because I'm agreeing with you that what you said is dichotomous. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I would probably ask Sean how is it not, but in any case, yeah. It is,
no, I don't think it was
either the case that facts exist without the necessity of God, or it is not the case that facts exist without the necessity of God. That is a true dichotomy.
Yeah, but this is not what you said before.
It's truly true.
Yeah, but this is not what you said before, because we talked specifically about agnosticism. So we're talking about beliefs.
Fallacy.
I actually repeated word for word what I said.
Okay. So in this case, so it is the case that X, or it is not the case that X. Now, how is that you infer that necessarily P believes in not X?
Either toast exists or toast does not exist.
Yeah, and so it's not about a B and not P, right? You're saying that it's not B and P. That's what you're saying, right?
No. So you started by the dichotomy. It is either X or it is not X. X being that facts necessarily referencing the necessity of God, right? Or something akin to that.
I mean,
Like
yeah, but
bigger than that.
what I'm saying is this, okay? You have a B.
No, I just wanted to say yes or no.
Okay, you have a
John,
B,
but I wanted to yes or no.
and I provided a not P. So you either have a B and P or B and not P. That's what it was. Because you believe that facts exist.
Okay. So just remember, right now you're changing what you said before that. Not initially, but before that. Because now you're saying that agent P believes X, or it is not the case that agent P believes X. Right?
No. I included the word belief, right, in the proposition only in response to what you were saying, right? My original, I'll repeat it for the third time, right? It is either the case that facts exist without the necessity of God, or it is not the case that facts exist without the necessity of God. That was the original statement, which is a dichotomy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's correct.
And
so it is either the case that facts exist without the necessity. So let me repeat.
Jeff Trimble, hang on. He wanted to pull the old Jeff Trimble. Do you have an argument as to why it's a true dichotomy? This is ridiculous.
Okay. Wait a second. Okay, cool. So it is either the case that facts exist without...
Which I referred to...
John, shut the fuck up! So it is either the case that facts exist without the necessity of God, or it is the case that facts exist without the necessity of God.
That's correct.
Right? Now, that's supposed to be a dichotomy that's supposed somehow to show that agnosticism is impossible.
Right, because the belief is such that facts exist.
Agent P, wait. Let's be systematic and going one by one. So agent A, right? A is an agent. Agent A believes that facts exist. Okay, go on.
And he's believing that facts exist in both horns. That's the important part. It is not the case that there's a lack of belief.
So he believes that if God exists, it is not the case that facts exist without the necessity of God. And if God doesn't exist, this is what you're saying. The form is whether God exists or doesn't exist.
So very carefully, if you examine it, it is the case in the first horn that the agnostic, believes facts exist. It is also the case in the second horn that the agnostic believes that facts exist. So
what is the second horn and the first horn? What are the horns? Wait.
Hang on.
What are the horns? I can't proceed to understand what you're saying. What are the horns? No, you may not.
Not the case.
Because I'm not tracking.
The person lacks the belief that facts exist.
Sorry. What are the horns?
I said it again. Both horns are inclusive of the fact that the agnostic believes that facts exist, right?
Okay.
It is not
so
the case
horns
that the agnostic is lacking a belief that facts exist. Now, the conditions by which the facts, the belief that facts exist are...
You're just rambling. John, you're just rambling. I asked you a simple question which you didn't answer.
Therefore, it is a true dichotomy.
Okay. So a dichotomy that you gave before is that it is either the case that facts exist without the necessity of God, or it is not the case that facts exist without the necessity of God. Then you said something about horns. What are the horns? Horns are propositions that one is committed to, right? That if he's not committed to the first one, he will be committed to the second one.
That's correct.
What are the horns? Okay, go on. What are the horns?
Both horns include the proposition that facts exist. Correct?
Okay. In both cases of what?
Of the horns, right? Both horns.
Please tell us what the horns are. Can you tell us what the horns are?
One horn is that facts exist.
The guy loves chocolate, and the other horn that the guy doesn't like chocolate.
The second
are those the two horns?
That facts exist without the necessity of God. So in both cases, right? Both cases that facts exist is part of each horn. Not only so, it is the belief that facts exist on both cases. That's so it's not the question of belief, because there is a belief that facts exist here, and there is a belief that facts exist, and because of something different, and they're both beliefs. They're both.
Now I understand. Okay, so the horns are, it is either the case, the agent believes that facts do necessitate the existence of God, referencing the necessity of God, or it is not the case that the agent believes that the facts referencing the necessity of God.
No, that's not what I said. It is the case that the agent believes that facts exist. Both statements is...
What statements? What statements? Say what is that fucking statements?
No, okay, Rhodey, you are correct. Those are the two horns.
False.
What he's saying is that those are the two horns, but what he's saying is that both of the horns include the fact that the agent believes facts exist.
That's correct.
I'm not contesting that, but he said right now that it is but he said right now that it is false. So please just tell me. I need to know. For the love of God.
I asked him.
Tell me, what are the horns?
This is not even a dichotomy, first and foremost.
Oh my God.
Okay?
John.
What I'm saying is this, okay? It is the case that the person, agent, believes facts exist. In the second horn, it is the case that the agent believes facts exist. Nowhere in the dichotomy.
How many times do I need to repeat myself? What are the horns in order for you to tell me what are the horns? Are the horns that the agent likes chocolate, or it is not the case that the agent likes chocolate? Are those the two horns?
No, they aren't. I asked him, and he did answer me. The horns are what you said about the referencing the necessity of God and facts existing.
I'll give you another example. It is.
And then he said it was incorrect.
Because he was being idiotic. Because he was waiting for you to say that both horns include the facts existing and the agent believing that facts exist.
That's correct.
He wasn't listening. Yeah, so he wasn't listening to you, Rhodey. So those are the correct horns, Rhodey. He's just trying to point out that both horns include the fact that the agent believes facts exist.
That's correct.
That's all he's trying to say. He's being ridiculous and not listening to
you. Right.
Rhodey, take a 5-minute break there.
And I do need to take a 5-minute break. Steve, that's going on for like 2 hours right now.
I know, and you haven't had a break in 2 hours. Christ, make it 15.
I could go 15 hours straight more.
You don't need a break.
Maybe he's tired.
You don't need the break. It's Rhodey that needs the break.
Oh, is that right?
John is a master troll. He's just like weather.
Maybe I'm just a masochist, you know?
Yeah, that might be part of it.
Maybe I just like hate myself. Maybe I just hate myself.
He does that all the time, Rhodey, where you'll ask him you'll repeat back what he said, and he'll say, no, that's not. He'll interrupt you before you finish and say that's not what I said when you haven't completed your sentence. So he does that all the time, and that's what he was doing.
Okay. So, John is not here. Jane, can you please tell me what are the two horns? Right now I'm very calm, Steve. Thank you for your
You had the horns correct. You had the horns correct. When he said you were not correct, it's because he cut you off. And the whole point he's trying to say is that so the two horns are, you either believe facts necessitate reference to God, or you do not believe that facts necessitate the reference of God. And what he's trying to point out is that both horns involve the agent agreeing that facts exist. I don't know why he's making this such a huge deal.
So the reason he's saying that is because he thinks that if you think facts exist, that's going to entail you to a specific metaphysic that's going to get down to the ultimate thing. Yeah. That's why he thinks that.
Are horns in this way used as synonymous with option?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah,
just
more specifically, available options.
I thought we were talking about bulls.
Yeah, I was listening for 15 minutes, no disrespect. Well, what the fuck are horns? But I figured they were options.
I thought we were talking about dodgeball. And Ben Stiller talks about grabbing the horns.
Damn, just keep it simple, everybody. But I never heard Rhodey blow a gasket before. He's normally pretty calm and mellow, so that's why I said 2 hours, need a break.
That's great.
It's a special feature of John with Brody. John gets him.
All right.
No fault of Rhodey. I feel like
no fault of Rhodey at all. Definitely sounds like someone who just needed a 5-minute break. That's all.
We need to start a new room soon anyway, because I think this room, well, I guess it's not my room to end, but I think we should probably not lose the replays.
Yeah, Rhodey makes a lot of sense every time I listen to him.
It's funny because it sounded like John was mixing in Darth's agnostic argument and J. Robbins together to just like amalgam of bullshit.
What's the difference between the two of them?
Thank you, Steve, by the way. I'm actually taking like 15 minutes break.
The difference between the two of them, to me, is that Darth sounds overly confident and insulting and just looking to forcibly back you into a corner, and he's going to throw a whole bunch of shit on the wall and find one thing that sticks and then keep you off the stage. Whereas the other one is kind of casual. He sounds a little stupid. You don't think that he's really as intelligent as he really is. Arguably, it could be said that he purposely dumbs it down. And then when you least expect it, he prances like a cat. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's true of J. Robin as well.
Yeah, J. Robin's argument is better than Darth's, though, which is funny.
What's the difference?
Because J. Robin talks about that fact thing, and with that fact entail, like he'll say that you acknowledge facts, and then he'll make you say that you acknowledge a worldview, and then implicit in that is that the worldview talks about every proposition, like the fundamental thing. It has to be included in it. But then Darth just talks about these definitions. He just like equates or conflates necessity as in the definition of God being the necessary condition of all things, and then talking about whether or not you commit to God logically or metaphysically necessarily, grounding all things.
Are you using transcendental reason?
They're both bad, but J. Robin goes a step further, I think. And it's funny because the argument that Matt was giving earlier is exactly the argument that J. Robin gives.
I bet that didn't go very well.
I don't think Matt can render it as well because, well, he's still figuring out, like, some of the 3 valid argument forms of classical logic and what soundness means.
I can steal Matt's argument.
Soundness to Matt is when an argument sounds good to him.
Soundness to Matt is the property of being audible.
Matt actually created a valid argument earlier today, like on the spot. Which I would think was
What was it?
Oh, I don't remember, but like it was something like we were just asking for a valid argument. Like any valid argument, I think. And he created something like I don't remember it, But it wasn't sound though, or like the premises wasn't established to be true, at least. But I actually think he's like getting better with logic. I think he's greater at logic than John Lee by far.
Well, Matt has this unique feature that John lacks, and that is that he wants to learn things, and sometimes he'll listen.
He wants to learn certain things.
That's still more things than John wants to know.
True, but it's like, from the boot to the head sketch with the, I just want to learn how to beat up people. So it's not that he's actually interested in learning, like, for growth. He only wants to learn how to bully people.
Facts that are not sound are mute facts.
Is it good?
I was really interested in learning from Matt Adams the other day that an argument can be valid and that the premises are true, but yet still not be a sound argument.
Oh, that's interesting.
He said, well, it's kind of what he said. An argument can be sound, but the conclusion not true.
Well, I asked him like whether the argument was sound. He said it was, and then I asked him if he thought the premises were true, and he said yes, and he said it was valid too.
Did you get anywhere after I left last night, Altoid?
I don't think so.
My favorite was when, was it a day or two ago, Gavin said he was like trying to do an argument and he's just presenting something that he's like, this is a deductive argument, so you know it must be true. He like explicitly stated that.
Gavin's interesting. Was that your first encounter with Gavin, Vito?
Well, longer one, yeah.
You know what would be a total gas is if we got, say, person debate with agreed upon rules, and we had like the atheists of Clubhouse and the theists of Clubhouse and a totally unbiased moderator. I think that would attract a lot of fucking people.
Well, the rules would be clever because you would be like tagging in someone. So you'd say, all right, I'm done, and you can only tag in one person, and once you said you're done, you're no longer allowed to speak. So you kind of work your way through people.
Steve, I actually think your debate with Darth was pretty great. Or by great, I mean funny.
Yes, I would say funny, considering I wouldn't consider it a debate because we spent the first half of it attempting to agree on the rules or argue about the rules. But
yeah. I'm not talking about the most recent one. I'm talking about the first one, where you agreed upon like not interrupting each other and stuff like that. And he.
Yes, December. You mean December 25th, Christmas Day?
Yeah, that might be it. Yeah.
Yeah,
that was actually like hilarious.
Yeah, the most recent one. Not a debate. I just came into his room and I listened, and he asked if I wanted to speak, and I said yeah, and then he grilled me for 20 minutes and kicked me on stage. Off stage, I wouldn't consider that a debate, but it was entertaining. I'll tell you that.
I am praised. Total stop.
Actually, I think I found a weak point in his armor a couple of days ago. When he said, what do I use to defend my atheism? And I said, well, I think there's a possibility that God does not exist. And he said, no, that's non sequitur, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. And again, I'm playing by his rules. You know, I'm not over talking him, and I'm saying yes or no or whatever like that. But then the second one, I thought I was pretty proud of myself because I wasn't prepared. And he goes, so without repeating yourself, what's another justification for not believing in God? And I said, quote, well, God never revealed himself to me like he revealed himself to you. And he goes, that's a non sequitur. That's not logical. And I'm thinking to myself, well, shit. If it's not logical for me to say God didn't reveal himself to me, how is it logical for you to say God revealed himself to you? So I'm going to use that one in the...
Yeah, that's actually fairly similar to an argument that I think Thomas presented to him. Because they say that we all know God through revelation, but if you don't interpret revelation, or if you don't understand like these revelatory facts like rocks and stuff like that to be revelatory of God, if you don't understand the inference there, then it just doesn't follow that you believe that God exists from that.
Yeah,
so we have to.
And the next time Darth says to me that God revealed himself to me, I immediately have to say, please tell us where and when and how, because I forgot to use that one too. You know, great. You got a presupposition that God exists because he revealed himself to you. Tell us all when, where, and how.
What's funny is that it doesn't really make sense to call it a presupposition if it's because of some reason, right? You're presupposing it because he revealed it to you. Isn't that like a flawed sentence?
Well, yeah, you can make that argument, but I think clearly the logical follow-up would be, fine, you want to presuppose God exists because he revealed himself to you? Tell us about it. When, where, and how.
You could ask, what you could do next time you talk to him, if you ever talk to him again, is ask, how does he know that his cognitive faculties are reliable? and not in like any derogatory way. Not in any derogatory way, right? But what I mean is that he could be under some delusion. He could be like asleep and having a dream or something like that.
Well, didn't they used to say God revealed it in such a way that they can't be wrong to try to get around that? I feel like they've kind of gotten away from saying that.
Yeah, but couldn't God just reveal it in a way that it appears to this fallible being that the human is?
But they can't be wrong.
Well, the answer could be, well, he was on one of his many acid trips, and that's when he revealed himself to him. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, did you climb a mountain, eat some mushrooms, and have a burning bush talk to you, or what? You know, that's the one thing I forgot to.
If I were to steelman Matt's position, which is a poor, like, image of Darth's position, it would be start with Godless's recent argument of epistemic nihilism and say, I find that distressing. I can solve it with presuming God's existence. If I say, as a presupposition, God exists, I'm able to get out of the distressing answer of epistemic nihilism. Therefore, it's extremely useful to have this in there, and I've justified that position. And my response would be, great, what more do you get by assuming God's existence other than God's